Oh yeah, my system is currently at a load of 18.
Okay, one sec, because we will go. I clicked live. Okay, let me just check the mics here. Sasha, you can also check it if you have this the YouTube link to the
yeah.
streaming. Okay, just to make sure the audio goes fine, and then we will start. Okay.
Oh yeah, my system is currently at a load of 18.
Okay. 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 Everything is fine. Okay, so I'll put the intro and then we'll start. 3, 2. And we are live with another TROM-Cast, number 59. In this TROM-Cast, we are going to discuss about maybe a different kind of, not internet, but the different way to manage not only social networks, but communication online between different platforms. And it's called the Fediverse. Before I go and try to explain it in maybe like under a minute what the Fediverse is, and then go and talk to our guest today, I wanted to let you know that you can, we usually have this TROM-Cast open for everyone to join, but because today we are quite a lot of people, we are 3 guests and we wait for one more, maybe we are going to like just keep it private, but you can participate on tromsite.com/chat. It's a Nextcloud instance where you don't need an account to ask questions and so forth. So this Fediverse, I made a blog on my website, a post there about what the Fediverse is, and I really tried to explain it in a way that even my mother will understand, because that's for me, that's the goal here with our project, to explain complicated things in very, very simple ways. And I'll give it a shot to explain what it is, but then maybe these people will correct me and they will for sure go into details. So for me, it's almost like for someone who never heard of the Fediverse, since you are used to Facebook or Twitter, imagine you have Facebook. Facebook is on facebook.com. Let's imagine we get rid of their data collection, and their advertising craziness and all of that. So you have kind of like a pure Facebook. Okay, on facebook.com. People go there and register, you make an account, you make friends there, but someone can have a clone of that on facebook.web, let's say. And other new users, they go there, so there are new users on facebook.web compared to facebook.com. And what's cool about this is that both websites look the same, but you can basically communicate between these two domains that are run by completely different organizations or whatever, individuals. And you can say you search for a friend that is on facebook.web and you find it on facebook.com, and you can communicate with your friend, and you can send messages, and you can comment, and you can like their posts and so forth. You can get a stream of their posts. Now imagine they have thousands of such clones of, say, Facebook. All of them are independent, but all of them are connected. So you don't care where you create your account, because you can follow anyone from any so-called instance. They call them instances or nodes or pods, depending. What's super cool about this is that you can do the same with YouTube. So you have multiple YouTubes, multiple instances of this YouTube, and not only that people from one YouTube instance can communicate with users from other YouTube instances, but you can even communicate with people from Facebook instances. So it kind of connects all of them. And imagine Instagram and Twitter and all of these platforms, and you can basically communicate with everyone from these platforms and follow them and so forth and comment. And it opens up amazing possibilities, because it connects all of these platforms. Actually, I think that's how the internet should be. And today we are going to discuss with some people who are not only inventing these tools, but also providing them as a service for others for free, basically, or other kinds of services that are in the Fediverse or not in the Fediverse, but our focus will be on the Fediverse. So you have Eugene. Eugene is behind probably the most popular such federated platform called Mastodon. He created Mastodon, and we are going to talk more about that with him. And we have Michael. Hey, Michael. And Michael is from Friendica, and he's developing the software behind Friendica, as far as I understand. And Friendica it's an amazing platform. It's like the alternative to Facebook. If Mastodon is more like the alternative for Twitter, Friendica is more like the alternative for Facebook. And I use Friendica, and I love it. I moved there. I moved all of my close friends there. Like, hey, move there. No point to stay on Facebook. But we'll talk about this if it's difficult or not to move your friends. And we have Muppeth from disroot.org, and have an amazing project providing lots and lots of services for people. You can upload files and share them, like this alternative to WeTransfer, let's say, or Jitsi Meet instances, or all kinds of like document sharing and notes. And you will see they have lots and lots of such really great services. So in a way, we have people who invent these technologies, but also people who just implement them for others to see. And let's try to keep it as less technical, not so technical for most people who are going to see this podcast as possible when we are going to discuss, because some may be very non-technical. And before I ask our guests here, before I ask them to tell more about their projects, and yeah, by the way, guys, if you want, if you could use the tromsci.com/chat, because I get lots of on-screen notifications, so it's a bit I cannot focus on that much. Everyone can find our TROM-Cast on tromsci.com/videos. We post them on, we stream on YouTube, but we post them on the Internet Archive, and we stream them from there. So let's start with Eugene, because Eugene, you created Mastodon. What is this Mastodon, for those who have no idea what it is, and why did you create such a tool that is in a way an alternative for Twitter?
Yes, hello. So Mastodon is a software that allows you to host a community of microblogging users. Well, that's a weird way to put it, a community of microblogging users. What I'm trying to say is it's primarily microblogging software, right? So microblogging is posting updates that are short in length many times throughout the day to an audience of people who follow you. And Mastodon enables that.
So why did you create Mastodon? Is it because you wanted a different kind of Twitter?
I was getting dissatisfied with how Twitter's run, and I was pretty sure that it was going to be run into the ground. I didn't like that they were having more ads, that the chronological timeline was being removed, that I couldn't use third-party apps anymore. So at some point in 2016, I was looking into alternatives, and there was an alternative that I was aware of because my friends were into it many years prior, in around 2010, 2011, called Identica. It evolved into GNU Social by 2016. So I was looking into that, and I initially just wanted to write an app for it that would just look closer to TweetDeck, because I didn't like how GNU Social looked. But when I started looking into the code base of GNU Social, and I realized what I'd have to deal with to write my app, I decided that I would give a go to just writing an alternative implementation. And I picked Ruby on Rails, which was my favorite programming environment, and just started working on my thing. Initially, I mean, the idea of having like a TweetDeck-like interface went into the background, sort of, because at the very beginning I was just trying to implement like the basics, and I was using. I mean, you can find the first posts on Mastodon.social from my account, and those posts were made when there was just no interface at all. I was using curl from the command line to post to the API. Yeah, so there was a lot of figuring out how this thing worked. I discovered that there were quite a few implementation bugs in GNU Social that they didn't notice because they were only ever communicating with other GNU social instances and not like anything that was implemented up to the draft of a spec. It's worth noting that the OStatus spec, which is the protocol that GNU Social was based on, never actually reached like a finalized document status. It was just a draft. But yeah, so there's a lot of bugs like that, and eventually it. Well, I can't say it eventually became popular. It wasn't quite a jump like that, right? So first I actually added an interface, and then in November 2016 I showed it to Hacker News, like a Show Hacker News post. That was the first explosion in popularity. People started using it. Then I don't even know what happened, but a lot of people came in different waves. Errol Balkan, the political activists, were privacy and software freedom, became interested in it, became an advocate for it. And eventually in the middle of 2017, I believe, this was already after, man, I skip over these events. Sorry, that was like 4 years ago. I mean, you must realize I don't have all this on the top of my head. There was a gigantic explosion of popularity in April 2017, which I would say is probably when Mastodon became like almost mainstream. It got coverage from all the major tech papers like The Verge, Motherboard.
How did it become so popular? How do
It
you
was
think
just, it was more or less random. It was just being at the right place at the right time. There was some hustling involved in terms of, back when I still had a Twitter account, I used to tweet at people who were expressing like frustration with Twitter, saying, look, I made an alternative, try it out. I did some of that, not too much. Like it wasn't like, I'm a pretty shy person. I'm a pretty shy person. I can't really do this cold calling type thing, but I did it a little bit. And I don't know how, but somehow it became really, really popular. Then a person from Japan called Nulkal also picked up Mastodon, made Mastodon.jp, and that became really huge in Japan. Then, I mean, it just started rolling from there. It's a snowball effect. And then eventually, after that, I got approached by Chris Weber from the, well, I don't think he's from the W3C, but he was on the working group for ActivityPub. And he approached me and he told me about the protocol he was working on called ActivityPub that would be better suited for something like Mastodon. And at the time, there were like no projects that were actually using ActivityPub. It was just all very theoretical. So I would be the first to actually put it into practice. And it took some time and some back and forth with the social working group, because there were some things that they didn't realize were needed in a practical situation. And yeah, that's how Mastodon went from being OStatus to Mastodon being ActivityPub. I mean, it took a little bit longer than that, because there was a transitional period where Mastodon had to support two protocols to bridge over this transition. But like at the time of this podcast, Mastodon is already long being just an ActivityPub server.
And you're also behind Mastodon.social, right? Is the main instance, the most popular one? What did you say?
Yeah, that was the first. I mean, that was the place that I started experimenting on back when the thing had no interface. It was just my personal server, and obviously when I posted the thing to Hacker News, that was also the only server running Mastodon. So people were started to join it to try it out, and then again and again. I mean, at around April 2017, I think there were like maybe three Mastodon servers, and it exploded after that. It's over 2,000 now. So
wow, so over 2,000 instances basically, right?
Yes.
Wow. And how many users are there? Do you know? Across
around 4 million.
Around 4 million users. Wow. I mean, I don't think you ever expected, right, this explosion, or did you?
No, no, I don't think I did. I would say I didn't really have any particular expectations. I was just doing a thing. I was certainly hoping that it would get me somewhere, but I didn't have like a realistic expectation of success in any way.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
your main motivation was basically just to make like a less evil, better alternative of Twitter.
Yeah, pretty much. Just wanted something that I could use myself.
Well, you kind of did it in this, like how functional that is, right? Because it has pretty much the same functions as Twitter, and it works similar. Or it has something. Do you have something that is different in a significant way than Twitter has?
I like to think of it this way. Both Twitter and Mastodon fill the same niche in terms of use cases. So it's like you want to maintain an audience. You want to send updates to your audience, and from that, a lot of decisions end up being the same. It's like a convergent evolution, right? It's filling the same niche, so it's going to look quite similar. But I don't like thinking of Mastodon as a Twitter clone, because I'm not necessarily going down and checking what does Twitter have. Let's copy that, unless it just makes sense, right? Just makes sense to have. And there are a variety of things that are different to Twitter, and there's a variety of things that we have that Twitter doesn't.
Yeah, because that's important to mention, that these are not just clones of the other, like Facebook and Twitter and so forth. They have their own thing. They look differently. They have different kinds of features and so forth. And we'll get back to Mastodon, of course. But before Mastodon, it was Identica, as far as I understand, and Friendica, which has such a friendly name. Friendica, what's up with Friendica? You know, how did that started, Michael? Can you tell us, and what's your involvement with Friendica?
Yeah, I can tell a little bit about it. I haven't started Friendica. I came to Friendica several years later, after it had been created. And funny enough, in the current CT, this is a German magazine, IT magazine. There's an article about the Fediverse. In the current one, so I just took it out with a timeline so that I can use it at some place. And yeah, Friendica had been created in 2010, so really short after this whole Identica stuff, and at the same time, like Diaspora and Friendica had been founded in the same month, I guess. And it had been started by Mike McGurvin, who had invented a lot of different networks. And when is it? I have to look a little bit. I guess around 2013 or so. I came to Friendica because the time before I had using OStatus based software, as this Identica, and then I searched a little bit for more, and I always had been a little bit in this I don't want to go mainstream role. So at the time when people used MS-DOS, I used DR-DOS, and at the time people used Windows, I used OS2. And so I hadn't wanted to make this other mainstream stuff, and so yeah, I came to Friendica, and I had, yeah, it was a little bit rough, I think, and so I started with small improvements. Then Mike left, and for different projects, and so yeah, I engaged a little bit more, and I guess yeah, we now created some really nice tool.
And
Should tell.
you're developing now. You are the core developer, or you are one of the core developers? How many are there?
I'm one of the core developers. The number of active core developers is, yeah, sometimes more, sometimes less. We don't have a real lead or something like this. We are a very anarchic group of people. So we don't have any. We don't have any leader or something like this. We are just a group of people who are coding some stuff. We're asking in advance mostly, yeah, I would like to code this or that. Are there any objectives against this or so? And then we're discussing a little bit, and yeah, that's okay. So yeah, I'm one of the core developers, and I have, of course, write access to the repository, but I'm just a part of it.
And Friendica, as far, yeah, yes, Sasha.
So I was just gonna say, and it's all voluntarily done, right? You're all volunteers, or is this like a job? People might ask.
No, I'm not getting paid for this. The only thing, the only advantage, no, not advantage. The only thing that is partly paid is one of my servers. I'm administering Piratica. That's my private and development server, and SqueedMe. This is a server with over 1,000 users. It's really huge for Frantica sizes, not for Mastodon sizes, I know. And that one is sponsored by some company, but that's all. Oh, and I have a Libera Pay account, and people really pay me a little bit. Not very much. It's about maybe 2 or 3 euros a month, but this is some symbolic stuff. I'm really happy about this.
Yeah, I will actually ask you all about how you sustain your projects, but before that, I want to know more about the technology itself. So you talk about protocols. You guys are talking about protocols. What is a protocol for someone who has no idea? What is this Fediverse? One of the Fediverse protocols, since Friendica, for example, as far as I know, supports a lot of them, right? Or a bunch of them. What is that all about?
Yeah, a protocol is really, yeah, you can really compare protocols with languages. So you have a group of systems who speak language A, another group is speaking language B, and so you have these different protocols, and you also have, let's say, different dialects. So even when you speak the same protocol, there can be sometimes small differences between, but mostly it works.
So Friendica supports multiple protocols, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the big advantages there. Is it different from Mastodon? Like Mastodon supports only one, or how is that?
Yes, Mastodon supports only one.
ActivityPub. ActivityPub. That's the one that you support, ActivityPub.
Yes.
Yeah, and on Friendica we are supporting Diaspora, ActivityPub, OStatus, and our own protocol DFRN. But it's sometimes a little bit interesting, because especially when you have a cross-protocol communication, because people on Diaspora can't see answers from people from ActivityPub and vice versa, but people from Friendica can see both. So sometimes it's a little bit mind-boggling in the discussions. So, but mostly it's working.
So how then did you get to Eugene? How are you then? You are so much popular than, for example, Friendica. Like Mastodon is so much popular than Friendica. Why is not Friendica also equally as popular? It was just like a fluke, right? It was just you never know such things.
I mean, yes, luck is involved. I think maybe the design might be more appealing. I mean, I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I mean, you should ask like a random person of the street what they find more appealing, or how appealing they find Mastodon, how appealing they find Friendica, and you'll get the answer there. For me personally, I don't know.
Yeah, because I also tried Mastodon since 2019. I didn't know about the Fediverse in general. I tried Mastodon, and for me it was a lot more, of course, a lot more comfortable to use Friendica in the end. But of course, the best thing is that people have options, and people can choose whatever suits them. And speaking of that, one really interesting project that I came across multiple times is this root.org, and I'll bring the website now. Hold on, because I can also show people websites here. We got so impressed by these kinds of projects that provide this sort of instances, if you want, not only from this Fediverse, but all kinds of instances, GTmeet, Nextcloud, all kinds of, from forums to document sharing and so forth. And that we were so impressed that we also created a smaller version for ourselves. It's tromland.org. And tell us, Muppeth, how did you start this project of providing this free services for people, and what kind of services do you provide?
Yeah, so well, we started quite small and without any plans to become big or anything. Basically, around 2012, 2013, we joined together, me and Antilopa, which is the co-founder of the project. We joined a house group, so a group of people people that were renting out an old school. So around 20 people or so, doing their garden and projects, and there was quite some artists involved in the whole project. So the idea of the house group itself was to be independent and sustainable. And since we were running Hack Lab in Amsterdam, and we're familiar with IT-related stuff, we decided that we could actually host our own email server, for example, or document sharing, so we could use it internally. And that's how we started. So we started looking around for services. Email was a no-brainer because everyone is familiar with email. But as we were looking for solutions for file sharing, we discovered OnCloud at that time, and we came across XMPP, which is a chat protocol, and that's when the whole federated services idea became a possibility for us, or became known for us, and we started exploring the other possibilities. And so we deployed a bunch of services for people to use internally in the house. And then once we had those, we decided that since the usage of the server that we had was very minimal with the bunch of people that we had from within the house, we decided that we could just open registrations and let others use our resources. And that's how it came to be. We sent our post on 4th of August 2015, I think, on Diaspora, saying just hello. And that was pretty much the start of the platform. And it then was growing steadily until, I guess, the moment when one of the open email providers went bust. I think it was openmailbox.org or something. And then basically someone within the community that was looking for alternatives said like, hey, there is this project, disroot.org. And suddenly it also happened on our first anniversary, which was also funny because on 4th of August 2016 we noticed a very big spike in users, and it's been growing ever since.
It's fantastic. And you're talking about email there, because as far as I understand, that's one of the reasons you started this unit, to implement that. But some people may ask, the email is a good example of maybe the federated, this federation, because people may not realize that I can send you an email from my own personal email and domain and server to Gmail or to Yahoo and so forth. So you can communicate like that in a way, and whoever wants to answer this, but is in a way this Fediverse a much more detailed and better built email protocol in a way, because it allows you to communicate between different servers.
I wouldn't say so, but actually I wanted to, in the beginning, point out that perhaps a good way of explaining how Fediverse works is if you give email as an example, because it's easier for people to grasp the concept, I think, or telephone providers, because it works pretty much on the same in the same way. So you have, let's say, a Vodafone person and a person from another network, and yet they can call each other. But I don't know if I would call it the same as email, because the federation goes back to the beginning of the internet, because everything in the beginning was actually leading towards being federated or decentralized, at least.
Speaking of that, I'm confused. This Fediverse, is this a thing, or is just we name a bunch of these protocols that talk to each other the Fediverse? What is it really?
It is a thing. But the definition can be a bit blurry. What we call the Fediverse is a network of servers that speak the activity pub protocol. So that's Freandica, Mastodon, Pleroma, Hubzilla, PixelFed, PeerTube, etc. But No, there's no buts. It's just that it's a portmanteau of federated universe.
Hmm. So it's only about the
Um,
activity pub or the other protocols as well?
Yes, it is specifically about
Uh,
activity pub, but that is a meaning that is put into it by how it's used. It's not necessarily comes from what the actual word means, because I think there was some dispute about like, I think Diaspora called themselves the Federation,
n-
and the Fediverse is us.
I guess it's a little bit complicated because sometimes people define diaspora as part of the Fediverse as well, and it's not really defined. And there had been some discussions some time ago, last year or now, maybe the year before, when in the German Wikipedia there had been an article about the Fediverse. And this really was interesting because there had been huge discussions about which systems belong to the Fediverse or not, because different people had got different opinions. Like, is it only ActivityPub, or is it all the other networks? And then some people decided, no, email must be part of the Fediverse as well. And so that been, I'm not saying that that's my opinion, but in this discussion, people really, it had been mind-boggling, this discussion, and it went really
I think
far.
they're
But
just wrong. I think they're just wrong. It makes the
yeah,
most sense to refer to a federated universe as things that can talk to each other seamlessly.
yeah.
It is the most useful usage of the word. It doesn't make sense to include email, diaspora, or XMPP, because you can't communicate with a diaspora node or an email address from the Fediverse.
Yeah.
I think people just get confused. Fediverse is like a noun, right? It's like a name, and federation is more broad. It's just a principle of decentralization. Federated network. It could be anything. It could be telephone lines, as mentioned by Muppeth.
Mm-hmm. But if on Friendica, for example, I'm not as technical at all as you guys, and I'm sure people who will watch this are not probably as technical as you are. But when I use Friendica, for example, what's important in my view from user perspective is that I can communicate with someone from diaspora in some ways, and from someone from PeerTube, or from Mastodon and so forth, or even can get the feed from an RSS source. And I think you even implement email, as far as I
Yeah.
understand. So I think, if okay, you can debate about what's federated or what's not, but I think the best idea here is for these protocols to communicate in a way that makes users' life online much easier, so you can reach others from other
I mean, as Michael mentioned, it gets kind of weird with the whole multi-protocol thing on one node, because you can see both sides, but other people from both sides can't see each other. So I think it makes sense to place Friendica in the Fediverse as far as they support the protocol, but it doesn't mean that all the protocols they support in their unique multi-protocol setup also become part of the Fediverse.
Mhm.
Okay. Muppet, any thoughts on this? Because you are talking on the website about federation, and you stand behind this idea, but what do you think about it?
Well, yeah, I do agree with Eugene about the definition of the Fediverse, although I do like to use this definition in a bit broader concept. But I do understand that there are discrepancies between protocols, and there are different approaches to different challenges. So this is the reason why we have so many protocols, and it is indeed a problem of people on one universe, let's call it, trying to communicate with people on the other universe. Or maybe we should talk about it in terms of galaxies. So you have a Fediverse, and then you have ActivityPub Galaxy, and then XMPP Galaxy, and some of them can talk with each other if they are using platforms or starships that can go between galaxies, and some people don't.
Well, I like that analogy.
I like the space analogy myself. I did a user experience study on our joinmastodon.org homepage, though, and we were using a Star Trek Federation analogy to explain Mastodon, and apparently that does not connect with people. So Good analogy, but doesn't work with the public.
Yeah, it has been tried with the Federation on diaspora actually as well. I don't know how well people understood it, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think regardless of this, let's talk about the. Have you guys seen the very popular documentary, The Social Dilemma? Probably you've seen it. It's a very popular documentary. It's about how these social networks are so whatever, they collect data, Facebook and YouTube and even Twitter, and they trap you there. If you are familiar maybe with Tristan Harris, I tried to get the guy to come to this podcast, but I of course the guy is too busy for these kinds of podcasts. People have this. It seems to me it's a wave of hatred towards Facebook and YouTube and the like, and I think for good reasons, because they collect a lot of data and they basically manipulate people in many ways. I mean, that's what advertising probably it's about and so forth. And what I was quite pissed off when I was watching the documentary is like, no one is talking about, they talk about some other alternatives, but they don't talk at all about this kind of alternatives. Why not talk about Mastodon and showcase, like, look how Mastodon can do an amazing job, or Friendica, or what Muppeth is doing there with disroot.org, with so many other services. So if you saw the documentary, even if you didn't, what do you think about, talking about, do you think these alternatives are as good, or are alternatives for the social networks that we see today?
I'll tell you that's exactly why I haven't watched The Social Dilemma, because they don't mention any alternatives and they don't mention the Fediverse. Not even specifically Mastodon. I'd be fine if they just mention the Fediverse in passing, but as far as they don't, it's just in my view, it's just a reiteration of what we, the people who are running or developing for the Fediverse, have been essentially saying for 4 years. All the arguments that they have presented in their documentary, probably most of them we have mentioned at least once in 4 years that we've been doing this.
It's funny because I was watching with Sasha the documentary, and we were angry at the end. We tried to reach to these people and be like, why don't you talk about Fediverse and so forth? But then we were like, oh, but probably you should see the people behind Mastodon or Friendica, how pissed off they are, or other such tools. Like, they must be really pissed off to see that they don't even mention these things.
It's like that when you make a joke and then your friend repeats the joke but louder and everyone hears it. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I think. Sure, go on.
I just want to say I'm used to Friendica not being noticed at all. I like the role of the underdog, so I find it always fine when systems like Mastodon or Diaspora, more in the past, where Diaspora had been mentioned, so that we can keep the role as the underdog. So for me, it's fine.
Sasha, by the way, you have your mic muted if you want to say something, just so you know.
Yeah, I think it also comes from the fact that people are too much, or mainstream media or media in general is too much focused on capitalism in the broad sense. So they see Fediverse or whatever federated applications or services out there as bike shed kind of glued together piece of software that is used by some people in the basement, and it's not something that you should treat seriously, just like with Linux on desktop or Linux generally. There is a lot of people out there that still think that it's just a waste of time, hobby kind of thing, so they don't pay attention to it. And also I guess it's easier for them to push the idea of like, look, this is the alternative to Facebook because it's a startup that has this $1 zillion funding and there is like a corporation behind it or some real people in suits behind it and stuff. And it's easier to push this kind of narrative, I think. Which is at the end not changing anything, because then you just jump from one centralized silo to another centralized silo that will eventually become evil, because as you expand and grow and scale, you need to get money from somewhere, and therefore you will start doing advertisement and all the evil stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the frustration that we feel. They just target this like attention economy as a bad business model, but they're looking for other business models, not
Like
recognizing
similar.
that basically any business model will lead towards, trying to make profit in any way possible, which will mean data collection, advertisement, whatever.
I think the comparison to Linux on the desktop is quite gloomy, and I wouldn't want to believe that we're doomed quite like that. I think that it's not so much whether they take Mastodon users seriously or not, but it's that the news cycle is dominated by more or less venture capital. It's company A has raised X amount of dollars from venture capital firm B, and it's like that all the time. Like that's what makes headlines. And because with Fediverse projects, none of that happens because we just casually chug along and work on without external money influx from large firms, without millions of dollars flying around. It's not that interesting. From the perspective of the news agencies, nothing is happening, even if we release updates or grow organically.
Yeah, I found it also so funny. Some years ago, when there had been this huge spike with Mastodon, and then I guess some weeks or maybe months later, there had been news articles like Mastodon is dead because I guess the argument had been around money. So because there is no business behind this or something like this. So there had been articles from people who really hadn't understood that people can do stuff, good stuff, big stuff, without financial interest, just because they like to do so. I guess many people don't understand this.
This is something that I had to deal for all of my life. Basically, for the past 10 years, I've been creating lots of things like books. I've been really releasing 30 plus books, all of them completely free. I just put them online, completely free. It takes me a long time to do that. I made a documentary back in 2011 and so forth. I made lots of other tools, and my family always were like, but maybe don't do much or anything, because it's like, how much money did you get? I'm like, I didn't get any. I get supported by donations, but it's almost like in our society, we are taught to put a value in numbers, and in money, and in likes or dislikes or shares and so forth. On YouTube or on Facebook, a video view is 3 seconds. That's how they measure it, probably. It's something like that. That's how we are measuring stuff in our world, in very shallow ways. And probably that's why when you see something like Mastodon or Friendica, and people are like, well, but that's free, probably has very little value, it's based on volunteers, it doesn't quite work. They don't even consider that as being valuable, because our notion of what is value is completely messed up by this consumerism culture. That's how I feel like, that's how happened to me. We have a customized Manjaro Linux operating system, called TROM-Jaro. And I'm trying to tell to people, look, you can install this. I made it easy for people to install applications and to look very nice, and automatic updates, automatic backups, and all of that. But people are not interested. People are like, yeah, probably it's shit in there. Like it was a guy from Germany I was talking to. He came here to visit us, and he was making this argument that, well, if it's free, probably it's not that great. Probably it's shit. And I'm like, but can you look at it, right? And I think that's the feeling that people have with these social networks, at least from my experience when I tell them about them.
I mean, I actually do have like a counterexample here. First of all social networks are free. So this is not unique. Making an account on Facebook or Twitter is as free as making an account on Mastodon or Friendica. And a counterexample that tried the opposite was app.net. They tried to do a centralized social network that required you to pay for an account, and well, they closed down just a few years ago, but they were essentially dead for many years because that didn't work at all. People didn't want to pay to sign up, and it just didn't work. So the problem here isn't that the access is free, and also not that it's run by volunteers, because, well, for example, I am paid by crowdsourcing to work on Mastodon full-time, so strictly speaking, I'm not a volunteer. But there definitely is the angle that it's just as long as big money isn't involved or extremely large numbers, as long as there are no large changes one way or another, there's just no angle for tech publications to write anything about it. For example, I was recently approached by a journalist who was wondering if there was a large influx of leftist users following some event in the United States. And I shared some information that I had. It's difficult for me to answer such queries because in a decentralized network, I, as a developer, don't really have any special privileged access to know like where are people coming from or how many are signing up. It's all tracked either publicly or not at all. But I shared what I could, and that might become a story because there's an angle, right? Something happens, something follows on Mastodon. That could be a story. But a normal operation just doesn't generate that kind of interest.
I would like to talk about something that I think is very confusing in today's world, this notion of free. I think companies kind of bamboozled everyone into this idea of something is free. You said, Facebook is free. Of course, Facebook is not free. It's money free. It might be Bitcoin free. It's not, data free or attention free. They want something from you. From some services you pay your money, they want your money. Some services want your data, some services want your attention, some services want pro accounts. So in China they want your social credits for all kinds of online things that you are doing. There are all kinds of these things called what we call as trades. You trade something for that. With Mastodon, you don't want probably my data or my attention because you don't post ads there. You just want me to register there and follow your rules, your code of conduct, for example, which is, I think, a normal thing that everyone should implement on their websites. But I think that's a big thing today. When people are saying, Facebook is free or Twitter is free, I think it's a very, very big misunderstanding. And I wrote a 1,000 plus pages book explaining this in detail and how they collect your data and how they use your attention and so forth in return for their service. That's why it's free, but it's not free. So you understand what I'm trying to say is not free. Like Facebook is, it's not free.
But I think it's an idea that's still hard to sell to the mainstream public because as long as no payment details, as long as you don't have to give your credit card information, it's kind of free, even if you end up paying by other means. As long as it's not direct, it's really tough to explain to people. Or some people might say, I don't have anything to hide. I don't care about my information. I don't care about seeing ads. They don't work on me. It's an uphill battle for sure.
But I think now with this like social dilemma documentary gaining more popularity and this kind of becoming more of a topic that more people start talking about, maybe it can change a little bit here and there in terms of people's understanding that, Facebook, it's not free because it wants your attention. That's why it feeds you all of this bullshit.
You have a point in that, but it's not really about Facebook being free or not. The documentary and what people are talking about now is how Facebook is destroying Western democracy. That's the angle. Like how the algorithmic feeds manipulate people's psyche to become more radical, how radicalization happens, how false information spreads. Those are the angles that are important to people, not necessarily that it's free or that you pay with your data.
They should put that together in that, it's like that because Facebook wants to make a profit, and that's why, it keeps you on there to take as much data as possible to then feed you ads, so that's the difference between it being trade free and Facebook free.
Yeah, and you see, I've been reading a lot about this and how these people are using Facebook's model to influence whatever exactly how you're saying it, because Facebook has an incentive to target people, target them for ad purposes. That's kind of their main thing. And others are using these tools that are built specifically to make a profit for ad companies and for Facebook to change the narrative in some people's minds, change their story that they know about the world, all kinds of governments and so forth. Like we know the Cambridge Analytica scandal and so forth. And before we go back to this discussion, it's Hippolyte, right? That's your name, right? Hippolyte is pronounced right?
It's Hippolyte.
Hippolyte. Okay, because French. Hippolyte. Thank you for joining. We were waiting for you, and we're like, where is he?
Yeah, sorry I missed the time because we changed daylight savings time just last time.
Yeah, and you are a developer also for Friendica, right?
I do, with this other awesome German fella, Michael.
Yeah, and I think it's fair enough to introduce a bit what your work on Friendica before we restart the conversation about Facebook and other social networks.
Sure. So my involvement in Friendica started in 2016. My Friendica account was frozen because I was using a pseudonym.
You mean
It was
Facebook?
the same
Facebook.
Facebook, sorry. It was the same pseudonym since 2011. So I don't know why my account was frozen at that exact time. But anyway, I didn't want to change my display name, so I looked for alternative. I heard of Diaspora, so I first set up a Diaspora pod. And then through that, I learned about Friendica. What I like about Friendica is that I could actually contribute, since it was written in PHP, while in Diaspora I could not, because I was not familiar with Ruby.
Mm-hmm. And you're currently you're active now with the development of from Friendica.
So I started getting active. First it was just more like cosmetic issues or like little touches here and there. And then I started like a huge refactoring project. I bullied people to follow coding standards. And yeah, and here we are.
Yeah, and what motivates you to do all of this work? Are you getting? I think you're getting a really high pay salary, right? Like lots of money.
Yes. We have a foundation that is massively popular. No, I do it because I can. First of all, like web development is my day job, so it was just a natural like extension. It's like, oh, I can do it. So since I'm using the service, I'm not providing my private data to it, since I'm hosting myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I can contribute to it, and I probably should. So I started like looking at the GitHub issues and whatnot, and I got like progressively more involved in it, until I became like a core developer. If that does make sense.
Oh yeah, that's great to see that with such projects you can reach the people behind these projects and you can get involved with them. Like I could reach you guys very fast, quite, and I suggested some stuff there, and I'm keeping an eye on Friendica to suggest more stuff there. We were talking about. Let's get back to that discussion. I think it's very, very important. We were talking about these Facebooks and YouTubes and so forth, and how they are not really free, because they want something from you. It's quite obvious, but they label themselves as free. Sometimes they put an asterisk there and be like, oh, this is free, but you should read the terms and conditions there. So what do you think about this world of Facebooks and YouTubes, and how does this compare with this Fediverse?
It's funny, because when you say free, I immediately think about the difference between free software and Libre software. It's the same kind of like confusion where, okay, you're not paying for it with money, but with some sort of free software, it is not like actually free. You cannot use it for your own purposes. You cannot like repurpose it. Like the way the Libre software licenses work. So it's the same. They play on, okay, it doesn't cost like a subscription, or it doesn't cost any like direct money, but there's still money involved. There's still like income. There's still sources of revenues, because at the end of the day, hosting is not free. I am paying for Friendica, not because I'm paying any Friendica organization, but because I'm paying the server I'm hosting my like single user instance on. So and the second part of it is that I have a host of technical skills that I acquired through my formal education and through my jobs that help me host Friendica and contribute to it. So I am not paying any money, but I am paying hosting, and I'm providing like my knowledge and my skills towards like hosting a Frantica instance, even if it's just for me. But that's like a huge step for like regular people. Like we like to say, well, it's free. You can do whatever you want with it. You can, yes, but the list of prerequisites in terms of skills and knowledge is like so huge. Then you practice it, it is like very rarely feasible. So centralized services exist, and they make it really convenient for you to create an account for free, so no money. And then, of course, you have no idea what's going on behind the scene. But even if you do, like we've seen with the multiple scandals, even if we do know what's happening behind the scene, it's not even enough. Like the gravitational pull is not enough. It's too strong, like to really discourage everybody from using it. Like through, you probably talked about the network effect, where if all your friends are using Facebook, then it's a strong reason to use Facebook on its own, regardless of what Facebook does or doesn't do with your private data. So yeah, that's there are like multiple aspects to this, and yeah, so we've had like an influx of users every time there's been like a scandal. There's been not just on Frenica, but on all the Fediverse, like software platform. It's great, but it I don't think it's going to be enough like to defeat them completely. We're just an alternative, and it's not always a convenient one. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, and more importantly, it doesn't have all the people. One thing Twitter really provided that no other service did before was like instant access to celebrities. Like when celebrities use their personal account themselves, then it's such like a selling point for Twitter. It's like, look, they are using Twitter themselves, like you, just like you, and you can follow them and you can interact with them. Well, they may never read your reply, but it's still like a strong selling point that almost none of the Fediverse properties have. Like we can't boast having celebrities on the Fediverse. Usually it's going to be like organization related to free software, or well, the biggest celebrity we have it here, it's Eugene, and he
I'm
created
not the
it.
biggest celebrity. No, we've actually had some celebrities. I wouldn't say like highest tier celebrities, like I don't know, Brad Pitt or whatever, but we had some like famous writers like John Scalzi. We had some like gaming related celebrities like Zoe Kin. Um, but it's worth noting they didn't stick around, and I think part of it is that um, at least the current culture that's developed around the Fediverse is not very friendly to celebrities, because we're all very, like, I don't know, like what's the best word to describe it, like egalitarian, right? It's all about we are all here together and we're all equal. We just follow each other like normal people, and we make like friendships or whatever. It's not about like, oh, here's a famous person, we should all follow them and hang onto their every word. And the lack of adoration is, I think, certainly a reason why maybe some celebrities, even if they try out Mastodon or another project, don't necessarily stick around for long. And another point is that, and I think I'm not regretful about this. We don't have any features that are reserved specifically for celebrities. For example, on Twitter, if you get verified, you get extra features. On Mastodon, you get those features for free. Every user gets them, regardless of whether they're verified or not. And of course, verification itself is also a big deal, because for many people, the blue check mark is a coveted goal in itself.
It's a status.
yeah, it is a status symbol above all, because it doesn't, in my personal opinion, it doesn't always make sense, because there could be multiple people in real life named the same thing. There could be a few different John Smiths, and they could be John Smiths in real life. They have documents to prove it, but their verification doesn't really reflect like what you really want to know from that. Is that the John Smith that's responsible for, you know, the famous book that he wrote, or is that a different one? That's what you really want. And the Fediverse does not have anything really to offer in that regard, so that's another problem that we have.
I
But
agree
uh,
with that. Yeah.
But isn't it still possible to follow Twitter accounts, right, through the Fediverse?
To differ in other Friendica, for example, may have something that connects with Twitter, but not natively to the Fediverse, right? It's just an API there.
But
Yep.
still, people can see what's going on there if they want to follow a specific person
Yes.
or whatever. So
Yeah,
There's like multiple bridges.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but bridges. Sorry.
Since I'm also very active in Twitter, I improved this bridge a lot. So in difference to what bridges are in Mastodon, you can use Friendica like a real Twitter front end. So this is nice, but of course, this is just another front end where you can combine other systems in it. But I wanted to say, according with this celebrity stuff, some weeks ago, our German Federal Commissar for Data Protection Freedom of Information. I just looked at the Wikipedia page of it.
Yeah, he's been on the Fediverse for a while.
Yeah,
but he
Ulrich Weber
recently
had been-
started a server on bund.de.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, and I find this really great because this is one of the steps I really appreciate. And some months ago, I guess Baden-Württemberg or so set up an account. The Regierung, don't know the word.
The government.
Government?
Yeah, the government, of Baden-Württemberg, I guess, started an account as well. So there are some steps, not the big celebrities, but some really nice accounts. So I guess it's slowly developing. So let's see how it grows.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not necessarily celebrities, I agree, but it's more like serious use cases for Mastodon being adopted by government agencies, by serious institutions. We have a growing number of politicians. I think there's a server that is run by the German Green Party.
Yeah, right.
I'm still wishing that some politicians who talk about digital privacy and various registration in the European Parliament would join the Fediverse, because often the legislation that they talk about and they advocate for or against that is directly affects Mastodon and other Fediverse projects, and it's kind of a shame that they are not part of our community.
Well, the German pirate has got an account. The one from the Pirate Party in Germany.
I think I know a couple of politicians from different pirate parties on the Fediverse, but I was thinking of Julia Reda specifically. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, because I don't have it in my.
Do you think that people who move to these alternatives move because they hate the other alternatives? They are like, I'm sick of Facebook or Twitter, and that's why they move?
I don't believe that. I do believe that to be and stay on the Fediverse, you need to be somewhat principled. Like, you don't need to be principled to go on Twitter. Twitter is still available. Like, I'm not banned from it. I'm not frozen from it. And I still go, because that's where I still have contact with some people I do not have access on the Fediverse. I am on the Fediverse because I'm principled and I do not want to comply with Facebook identity verification procedure. But it has cost me convenience. There are many people I cannot have. I'm not in contact with on social media because of it.
Realistically, it's still about the network effects. That is the biggest obstacle to the Fediverse adoption. It's the network effects. So the situation is improving over time. it's kind of like the game Osmosis, right? Where you have like these bubbles and you have to eat smaller bubbles until you grow enough to eat the biggest bubble. And we are a medium-sized bubble right now, but we're getting there.
So you need more angry people at those social networks. Kind that's what maybe that's what it is. But the network effect is real, of course. And Shas, if you want, you can ask those questions. You ask some questions in the chat there. But it was about like, if my friends are not there, in a way, why should I move? It's an empty place for me. So I don't think I can make my parents or other people that I know that are so-called normal, let's say, not very pissed off at this Facebook and Twitter and so forth. How can I make them move there? I think that's the $1 billion question. I have no idea. I moved there because I was very angry at Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and other platforms that collect your data and pretend to be free and all of that. That's why I moved. Plus, I got used to just using different tools, So, yeah.
And I see it a little bit different there. I see the our social networks, comparable with, let's say you're moving into a new town and you don't know anyone, and you just go. You see, oh, there is maybe a nice club here. I just go there, and then you meet maybe people, and you have to be an open person. You don't go then in that club because you think, oh, maybe there is someone I know. You just go there to, I want to meet new people. And I guess this is the difference, that people who want to use social network, but I want to connect with my mother, with my father, with, don't know, whatever, my neighbor, so they won't come to the Fediverse. But people who are open, or maybe people who are in groups, when you're a group of people who are maybe engaged in some, don't know, organization or so, maybe you're just like, don't know, Fridays for Future or whatever, when they would decide, oh yeah, we are doing all the communication there, this would be the effect. But yeah, this, I want to meet someone I know, this will not happen.
Yeah. It's I think looking at the Fediverse as like the alternative to the mainstream social networks in this regard is very naive in a way, because we've been around for a really long time, and I see Fediverse as like a completely different universe, sort of say, where you don't meet your neighbor, because I am personally afraid that the moment I will see my neighbor on the Fediverse, it will become exactly the hated mainstream social network, and probably most of us will move on to Fediverse 2.0 and start doing a new thing.
I can't really speak for projects that are closer in design to Facebook, but in case of Mastodon, you're not really meant to follow your neighbor or your mother. It's the use case is exactly the same as of Twitter, and Twitter users have never been about following real life contacts. It's always been about either finding, admittedly, celebrities to follow, or just making random connections around various interests, and then getting to know the person behind what they're talking about, like artists or musicians, or just random people who talk about movies, or that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shas, you wanted to say something? Because raise your hand.
Yeah. So, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, Shas is
Yep.
from TROM, from our project. He's a friend of ours.
Yeah. So, I've joined Friendica because Tio was on Friendica. So, I'm basically the average person that you talk about. So when you say things, specifically when you talk about protocols and software communicating between each other, I understand maybe 5 to 10%, but I don't understand everything because I'm not a specialist. So I am pretty much the average person. And I've stopped using Facebook for, I don't know, maybe a month now or something. And that happened because I broke my old phone and I can't get to my Facebook account. And I haven't, I mean, when I got a spare phone, the Facebook app was installed in it, but I was just too lazy to sign in and I'd forgotten my password and because it's been so long. And I thought, okay, let's use this as an opportunity to see if I can stay away from these ad networks because usually these things. I mean, as soon as I found out about the addicting nature of these things, I caught myself looking at Facebook when I waited, basically anywhere. And I wanted to see if I could change my pattern of behavior, and that's why I moved to Friendica. And like I was looking out for alternatives, and I remember when Mastodon released, and it was all over other social networks that there is this alternative called Mastodon. I wanted to join up, but say what you will. I mean, it's a very nice, polished piece of software and all of that, but it's still not easy for really, really average people want to be able to sign up for something within 2 to 3 minutes. I mean, that's my perception of it. Because if I could get a Mastodon account and connect immediately to something else, quite like in Facebook, you could have that up and running in maybe 2 minutes or something. Perhaps it will invite more people to join in. I don't know. I might be wrong about this because joining up for Friendica for me wasn't the most easiest thing, but I was very, very motivated that I'm going to get there because I really wanted to try it out. And I liked your logo. Okay. So I thought, I mean, no offense. I really like the Mastodon logo also with the tusks and all of that, super artistic. But I like the Friendica logo more because it was super cute and I liked it.
That's the reason people join the logo.
See, that is where
cute.
average people are at. That's where I am at.
The logo is cute and it's easy
Yeah.
to sign up.
I mean, I cannot believe it, but that's what we've been. I mean, that's what the internet has done to us. The experience on the internet has been, oh, cool, nice thing. Let me click on it.
My question to you is, normally it is very easy to sign up for Mastodon. Did you land on a server that required manual approval from the administrators to activate your account?
Okay, so let me put this back to you. Do you understand that the average person, the very fact that they have to be faced with this situation is not what they're used to?
Right.
Do you get it? Because I mean, to you, it's a very, very everyday thing.
I mentioned at the start of the podcast, we did a user experience study on the Join Mastodon homepage to find out where people were having problems. And one of the problems we found out was that if people accidentally selected a server where you needed to write a reason why you want to join, and the button says request invite, and then it takes for how many hours for the administrators of that server to approve your request to join. That was an awful experience because people lost interest immediately. Like they sign up, they never got in, lost interest, lost user. So what we did was we redesigned the community picker to be really upfront about you won't get an instant account if you click here, right? So hopefully, if you accidentally landed on one of those servers, this will not happen again because you will be warned up front. But yeah.
You think also a problem that I've seen is that people, they are used to okay, go on facebook.com and that's it. That's the place. Well, on these instances, you have all different domains. And you either remember one of them and that's the main one, or they are confused, they may not know where to go, what to associate Mastodon with. Is Mastodon a social? Because that's the main instance. Or there are so many out there and this can confuse people. That's what I've seen, for example.
Yeah, that's not solvable, unfortunately. Making Join Mastodon the primary thing that people think of, and improving the experience of the community selection tool is the best that we can do. One of the best things that individual users can do is, if they invite their friends, invite them to the same server that they're on, right? Because then there's no more questions, there's no more wondering, what should I join? It's just, it's one, just like facebook.com, you send an invite, join me on mastodon.com com or whatever. That doesn't exist, but whatever. Join me there, and they don't have to think about where do I get an account. They just fill out the sign up form, and it takes 2 minutes. And the extra thing, if you send somebody an invite link on Mastodon, you can tick a box, and they will automatically follow you when they sign up. So no need to find your friend; you already follow him, right? So
yeah. On the other hand, I wanted to say that it's not like it's an easy process also for Facebook or Twitter and so forth. They also, you have to like put your name, and sometimes you have to verify with your phone. Sometimes you may ask for that. So I think it's more also, it could be more about people's motivations, because I've seen, for example, my mother, because she doesn't know much about computers at all, but she will put up with the shit from Facebook, if she has to verify some stuff, or she doesn't know how to navigate things. Facebook is a clutter, it's a mess, if you look at Facebook, where they find
I think
ways.
a lot of people who talk about how hard or easy Mastodon is to use are biased because they've joined Twitter over 10 years ago, and they forgot what it was like when they were new on the platform.
Yes, I agree.
Nowadays
I
they
agree.
have like 1,000 followers, and they follow 600 people, and their feed is full, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I want that immediately when I join a completely new platform. Why don't I get that? There's nothing you can do about it. It's just unfair.
It's also a matter of habits, I think, a lot, that people are used to. Most people are not very tech savvy, and all these big corporations are putting, I think, a lot of effort to keep the status quo of their users not needing to know how the software works, or just learning how to operate certain platforms, so let's say Facebook or Twitter. So when they are met with another platform that has a bit different user interface, even the fact that, I don't know, let's say share button is not blue but it's green, makes people confused, or any changes to the user interface makes people confused, and they black out very often. I very often meet people, and we do workshops as this route when we onboard like organizations or groups of people, and very often people just black out when they are faced with basically the same type of software. So let's say when we talk about Nextcloud, it's just like Dropbox, but the buttons are somewhere else. The URL is somewhere else. Most of the people type Facebook into Google search, and then they click on Facebook because they don't know, they don't grasp the concept. And I think this is the big issue also. So apart from the fact that, yeah, exactly, you joined Facebook 10 or 15 years ago, I've never seen Facebook. I saw it like a few months ago in real life, because a friend of mine was logged in, and then I realized how similar it is to Hubzilla, for example. But I find it just as messy as, let's say, Friendica or Hubzilla, where people coming from Facebook, they would complain that Friendica and Hubzilla are very messy and hard to grasp the concept and the UI, and they complain a lot, while actually the same thing happens on Facebook, but they just went through years and years of practice and learning where to click all the buttons, and for them, it's the habit that they developed, and
Then
it's
again,
very hard to change it.
Then again, how did Snapchat get away with
Exactly.
becoming a popular app? Because their interface is completely unintuitive. You don't get told where to tap, where to click. You have to discover all these different moves and weird gestures that you need to do. So, and then they
Exactly,
somehow
and
managed to get through that. I don't know how.
Yeah.
It's
And
amazing.
I know
actually,
I
they
think
didn't
it's
manage to
venture
get through
capital.
with me because I hated that software, because when I opened up Snapchat, I didn't know what to do with it. I thought this is some piece of shit I'm never going to use in my life at all. And that, I mean, even till this day, for me, I don't go on Twitter because I don't like what it's about. The first time I tried to join and I saw people were tweeting, and you had to say things within a character limit. If you are going to force people to say everything within a certain character limit, you're going to force people to develop the kind of behaviors that oversimplifies everything. I feel that it'll eventually run towards that, even though there is a tendency to do that. And for me, that was just super shit, because I had no problem looking through a Facebook post which had a lot of text and then images and other things, because I'm used to using the internet like that. I would open up Wikipedia and there'd be sections, and it was very neat. But I think it only goes so far. Snapchat is like, I don't know what Snapchat is for, even till today, and I'm not going to find out. So please don't tell me.
I kind of disagree on the character limit thing because I've adopted a character limit for Mastodon as well, even though it's a bit bigger than Twitter's. I think that what we're dealing with is what's called an attention economy. When I'm browsing my social network, my home feed, I am interested in all of the people who I'm following. And without a limit, basically means that anyone can grab like the majority of the feed at any point. I want a little bit of everything, right? And as far as simplifying something goes, I mean, the limit doesn't really stop people from uh, adding more, right? People just thread things to the different posts. It's maybe a bit barbaric from the perspective of someone who uses like full text blogs like WordPress or whatever, but it works. And in some ways, this threading process is actually easier to actually write in, because rather than having like a full blank page that you need to like write everything into, you're thinking in these short thoughts, and they just have to be self-contained. You don't have to think about the ending and the middle bit right from the start. You just start writing, you have a thought, then you think, oh, something else, you add onto it, right, again and again. And I think that's kind of the other side of the coin of having these character limits, and why I'm in favor of them.
And of course, it depends from people to people, whatever they prefer. I never got used to, for example, this Twitter, how Twitter works and replies and so forth. But that's not to say that there's so many people out that others do not find it very useful, and clutter-free. So I think it's a subjective thing, because people, there are billions on Facebook, there are hundreds of millions on Twitter and other platforms that are similar or in between. So you can see that. But I think the point here is that people will also go to TikTok or other platforms. They'll move from Facebook to Instagram and so forth. Different kinds of UI there. It looks different. You have to interact with it in a different way. They will move there, as far as I can tell, just because it's something cool. They see others move there, and celebrities and so forth, and they will put up with whatever is there. Even I think my mother will wait 2 days if they will Facebook will work like manual activation of your account. If that's how it will be, I think she will wait 2 days without a problem. I think many users probably will put up with that just to be with those cool kids there. So probably that's a lot when it comes to people moving to other platforms. They move, from what I can say, not because mostly it's the interface and what the features and so forth, just because it's cool there. TikTok is cool now, so they all move there and put up with whatever is there to put up with. In defense of Friendica, I put this on my blog, and I will show you now. I put how our projects page looks like on Facebook, and how it looks like on Friendica, and it's a completely different. I don't find that cluttered at all. Of course, it depends from who you ask, but I think it looks a lot less cluttered. I just wanted to because I made the point in my blog how, oh my god, how I feel like it's so clean. It's not only me. It's like, I'm like, oh, it's so fucking clean. On Facebook, I didn't use Facebook anyways. I use a third party like Hootsuite to post there. I don't use Facebook or other such social networks. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have one technical question. With this character limiting, is it easier for your servers to handle if there's some kind of limit like that?
I don't think in practice that is a real concern. No, in practice, whether you're dealing with 500 characters or 2,000 characters, the difference in size that it takes to process is minimal, because it's just text. So no, that's not part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in fact, Mastodon can handle posts over 500 because they get the posts from Friendica, which are not size limited, and the posts from Pleroma. And luckily, some versions ago, that this collapsing been implemented so that even a long post doesn't clutter your stream. Of course, I have got Mastodon accounts as well. I need test accounts, and so I need I see the progress there as well. And I think this is a nice solution. That you can shrink and increase the long posts as well. So that this has been nicely done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I recently started using Friendica, and I think it's so much cleaner, so much nicer than Facebook or I don't know, anything I've really used before. And you can make posts much better too, because you can format them. You can put like pictures where you want. You can make some words in italics or bold. Like I think it's very
it's good that you have
very
this for
neat.
different needs. For different needs,
Yeah.
That's perfect. Embrace variety. I think that's the best. It's not like Mastodon and Friendica have to merge somehow and find a middle solution. Let them as they are. And if you
Yeah,
don't,
and
yeah.
I agree. I agree. This kind of plurality that is there will allow people to develop software and these things based for very specific things. And if you are better served by diaspora, then you can go there. And the fact that these pieces of software can talk to each other, and then I can see posts from diaspora, from Friendica, and from Mastodon. I think I have a very, very primitive understanding of what's actually going on, but I understand that these are different pieces of software all using common protocols and they're speaking, languages that they can understand with each other. And if Mastodon can do something, that Friendica cannot do, there is no pressure on Friendica to keep up. Friendica can keep doing its own thing, and Mastodon can do their own thing, and whichever suits you better. And if you can talk to each other, I think that's a great thing. There is no pressure for any one of these networks to become, something they shouldn't want, they don't want to be, just so that they can keep their user base. I think they can cater to the user base that thinks like them. And I think that is both rewarding for the users themselves and the people who bring these things, like you guys who make it. And I think that is a more egalitarian relationship.
I observed that, Shaz. I wanted to say this. I observed this with Linux distributions. Like you have all kinds of distributions, for all kinds of needs and many desktop environments. You don't have to have one, and to me that's a great thing. And what you see is like people come to say Manjaro or whatever, CentOS or whatever, and say, oh, they complain about this and that, and those people there can say to you, oh, I think you should go and use Debian, or you can go and use other Linux distributions because that suits you. I can send you there because I have no other interest to keep you here, and I think that's a very important point. Same I found out with this federated social networks. If I complain and say, okay, but Mastodon only allows me to post, just 500 characters or whatever, they can very simply say, okay, go and use Friendica. If I complain about something from Friendica, they say, go and use Mastodon, maybe it's better for you. And I think it's something that companies can never be able to do, because you cannot send your users to this other company, because you will lose. Users are, this guy, at least there is something very important in this documentary at the end, the social dilemma. This guy says, a dead tree is more valuable today than a live tree. A dead well is more alive, worth more than a live well. A human being, is worth more when he stays in front of the computer like a zombie because you mine his data than a human being that's happy in this world. So these companies transformed users. It's funny because users is like only drug dealers and internet companies call them people users, but they use users as their assets. It's a valuable thing to extract. You have a price, so I cannot send you to another from Facebook to Twitter, but Hippolyte can send me to Eugene's social Mastodon.social and say, okay, dude, you don't like it, you just go there. It's very nice there. So I think that's a fantastic thing. I've realized this with open source software all the time, and I fucking love this. It's a different community there.
I have had like some Friendica users telling me, well, I'm sorry, I won't use Friendica anymore, but I will be on Mastodon. And for me, like personally as a Friendica user, it's completely transparent because I can follow them on Friendica or on Mastodon. Sure, it stings a little because they couldn't find what they wanted on Friendica, but like functionally, it's like exactly the same. And I've had like this other like experience with someone who said, well, that's it. I'm not talking about myself on my Mastodon account anymore. I'm going to write it on my blog with like an RSS feed. And for me, again, on Friendica, it's completely transparent. I can like subscribe to their RSS feed and still get their content. I cannot comment on it, but there's like this seamless like transition between so many software pieces that you definitely cannot get on Facebook or Twitter or any of the proprietary social network.
Can't you integrate WordPress? I've heard about that. Integrate WordPress into this Fediverse and comment from a social network to a.
So WordPress has plugins that rely on ActivityPub or more to my knowledge about web mentions. And then you can, I'm not completely 100% on how it works, but it does seem to work. I've had someone use their Mastodon account to reply to one of my WordPress posts after I activated the web mention, and I got it on my Friendica page. So it works, and I'm not exactly sure how, but it's just magic to me.
That's cool.
That's cool.
And I also wanted to say about this competition stuff. It's something I really like. It's just like I'm in contact with many developers from other systems. Like for long years, I've been in contact with the diaspora people, and when they several years ago changed their protocol, I actually worked with them to improve their protocol. And every year, I'm meeting with people at the FOSDEM. We are sharing the same flat. There are people from diaspora, social home, and this whole stuff. And we talk to each other. We like each other. And of course, like Hippolyte said, it stinks a little bit when a user say, I'm leaving, because then I have the feeling I did something wrong. I could have improved the software, but the person is not lost when the person is moving to Mastodon, Pleroma, Diaspora, or whatever. So we can keep in contact. And I also see this competition part, like seeing how easy it is to subscribe to Mastodon comparing with Friendica. First, Friendica really a mess, I know it. And because it's like it's with Army enough, you have so much functions, it's complicated. And Mastodon is much better in this. So, but this is competition. We can try to look, but how are they doing, and we can incorporate this as well. So this will improve our software, and we can do it without suing each other. So because for example, at the moment we are implementing the Mastodon API so that we can use so that our users can use Mastodon applications, apps here for their smartphones, because they are much more out there than for Friendica. But this will not lead to some legal act like you violate our copyright or so. So this is so on a very friendly level. We compete with each other.
Yeah,
And
it's
you
more
help each
collaboration.
other out, right?
What?
And it's like a community. You can help each other out, right?
Yep.
Because say Facebook isn't going to go to TikTok and ask like, hey, how do you make something better in this app? But
They go and they buy them.
Yeah.
I think you are worth 4 billion, and I think we are going to buy you, and you don't have any answers to that. We will. I have a very important topic now to discuss, because this is very important, about censorship and about how you deal with that. Because here's why. I was searching what is the most popular Mastodon instance, and maybe Eugene knows where I'm going with this, but it's this website called gab.com. And I go there, I have no idea, I have no idea. It's a completely different thing, a different word for me. And I go there and I see all kinds of all kinds of posts there that are very, I don't know, a bit extreme, let's say, and so forth. And I read about it. And apparently someone took the Mastodon code, and implemented on a different on a website, made an instance of their own, and you released a statement against this gap.com. What is with that?
Let me interfere here. So when Gab adopted the Mastodon source code, they obviously didn't reset their database. They imported everything they've already had, which included like almost 1 million accounts, right? So when you're saying that Gab is the most popular Mastodon server, it's not like 100% true statement, because those people signed up a long time ago before Mastodon came into the picture. They're probably not active, and all of them are probably bots. So they're kind of fudging their numbers there. The other part is that in the meantime, they've disabled Federation because they got shut off. Like, what's the right word? They got ostracized from the Fediverse,
Yep.
like from the majority of it, including like all parts of the political spectrum ostracized them. So
Why?
they just like backed that.
Why
Why?
that?
Because nobody likes them. Like even the right wing people don't like them because they're boomers. Like the Gap people are like really old, cringe-worthy. Okay, I don't want to go into like the descriptions of the user base, but let's just leave it at that. They got ostracized.
Yeah, because that's I think
And-
it's important. Why? How do you decide? Who to ban and who to stop from federating with you and so forth.
Well, I don't decide except for myself, right? And it's just it doesn't even have to be a consensus. It just effectively becomes a consensus when everybody comes to the same decision independently. Like I don't want to talk to Gab, and like all the other admins in the Fediverse decide, yeah, I don't want to talk to Gab either. And so it becomes like this effective consensus, even though like it's not really a global decision for everyone to make. And if somebody doesn't want to follow the same rules and talk to Gap, they could theoretically.
When you say you mean Mastodon as social,
I
for
mean,
instance.
yeah, as an admin of Mastodon Social, yes, exactly.
Yep. And this. Oh, sorry.
Now the whole Gap thing is like essentially it was a move to circumvent a Play Store ban because Gap's own apps got banned from the Play Store or from the Apple Store. So they decided to take our open source software, stick their logo on it, rework a little bit of the UI, and that way they get access to all the Mastodon apps that talk the Mastodon API.
Mm-hmm.
And they also get to talk about how they're circumventing censorship by, basically repeating all of our talking points about the decentralized social networks and stuff. But they get to pretend like they're doing it. And another funny thing is that they raised like I think they raised $1 million, Gab, for developing their own platform before they just decided to take Mastodon's open source free software code and just use that instead. So where all that $1 million went, I don't know. A good question.
Check your bank account.
That would
Never
be nice.
know.
Although maybe not from that source. But yeah. So yeah, now they're a little bit irrelevant because they just decided that they don't want to participate anymore anyway. So I mean, why even bring them up? They still appear on some of the. I think the way you found them is some of the statistics websites about the Fediverse. They still appear on those, I think.
Yeah, probably. And that's the reason I brought this into discussion, because I wanted to see how do you deal with censoring. In this case, you are censoring, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're censoring from your own platform. You're censoring this other platform that you could communicate with. So you kind of stop the communication with that, right?
I think censoring is both the right and the wrong way to talk about this, because on one hand, my platform is like my home, and if someone comes into my home and starts talking about the earth being flat, I am free to tell them to leave. And yes, I am censoring them, but also they are free to go to some other house and talk about the earth being flat, or their own house. And in that way, it is not censorship, because just because I don't want to see anything from Gab and I don't want my users to have to deal with anything from Gab, doesn't prevent them from, in their own space, doing whatever the fuck they want. Oh, sorry. Are we supposed to swear or not swear?
Please, fucking swear.
All the time.
And this is and I think this is the nice thing about the federate, or the beauty of the federated software, because you're essentially, you could call it censoring, but yeah, you basically tell a drunk guy at your party to go elsewhere, but this person can easily start their own server, their own node, and then
their own party,
and not only communicate with other parties that do want to listen to him, But even people on your server, if they disagree with your decision of blocking that server, they can as well move elsewhere, because they are not. It's not the same as changing from Facebook to Twitter. You don't lose your contacts. You don't lose your network. You just change the server and then continue using it as if you were on the previous party.
So
Now
it's
you're
easy to
just with a
migrate.
bunch of drunk douchebags, but that's a different story.
So is it easy to migrate from one instance to another?
It depends on the software, I think, because if you're talking about Fediverse, you're talking about a lot of software.
I can go into
and
detail on this. So if you actually get, as a user, banned from a server, then obviously you don't really get the freedom to move your content anywhere. But if you're just, casually migrating from one server to another, there is a mechanism that moves all your followers over as well, so you don't lose any of your audience. They all just automatically refollow your new account. But the best option for someone who doesn't want to have to deal with anyone else affecting them at all is running your own server, because then you can't really be censored. I mean, once again, it's the distinction where it's both yes and no that I brought up initially in this discussion. Nobody can tell you what to do on your own server, and you control your audience. Nobody can take that away from you, except that some of your audience members can obviously choose to leave, and sometimes that involves like another server saying, "Yeah, we don't want to federate with you," so you lose your audience from that server, right? But you can still continue to maintain your own audience on your own and continue to post. And my battery is low, so I hope that we can wrap up. Or
If not, plug it in, please.
I can't plug it in.
Oh, that's too bad, because I wanted to ask you if I'm on, for example, on Gab, this website. I'm there. I make an account. I have no idea what is with these people. Can I still follow others from Mastodon social, or I'm?
Well, as I mentioned, they've disabled that functionality because they got ostracized.
But if you,
But because of them. Not
But if
because
you okay, let's just take another. Well, what other server could we take for an example?
Free speech extremist. They are really intense, but they federate with more servers.
Yeah. So yeah, if you were on there, you could probably follow a lot of people, except obviously from places that have decided that they don't want to talk to free speech extremists.
Like me,
Is it
you can't follow me from freespeechextremist.com.
Yeah.
No.
We don't
Doesn't work.
on Mastodon social. We don't federate with them either.
So these are like little villages of people in a way, and then they decide for that village. And if you don't like the village, you go to the other village. That's kind of how it is. And if you don't want for a village to communicate with the other village, you kind of cut the connection. But anyone can move.
Yeah.
And you can also create your own village if you want to. Right?
Yep, I mostly compared with pubs. So when you go to a pub and you come in as a guest and you shit other people on the table, then of course the pub owner will throw you out until you maybe come into a pub where it's okay to shit on other people's table, and then you feel happy with this. So
And that's the Gab.
There's a
yeah, maybe that's good. Yeah, and I think it's totally okay, and that's a huge advantage, because here on Facebook or Twitter or so, they always have to find this median. Like yeah, this is maybe a little bit extreme, but when we throw them out, we have to throw them out, and so they're really in some parts they go too far, and some other parts not too far, because they have to please everyone. And here it's clear. I wrote in my user agreement, don't know, this whole legal stuff, that I'm simply left green Gutmensch, don't know how to describe it. So I'm just a left greenish person, and when someone totally disagrees with this, he shouldn't join my server. And that's totally okay, because then people just say, okay, no, I'm very conservative, and no, I left green, I don't like this. So maybe I join another server. And so that's a huge advantage. You can throw people out, and that's not real censorship in a way. It's just like you don't want them on your ground where you pay for it, maybe, but they can go everywhere else. or could set up their own server, of course.
Shaz, you want to say
But
something?
yeah, I mean, I've been watching this this specific pattern of behavior, let's say, where see my friends, depending on what they choose to follow on mainstream ad networks like Facebook or Twitter or whatever, they get fed information which may or may not be true, which leads them to um, hold opinions which may or may not be well informed. And what that does is because I do not subscribe to the things that they subscribe to, and I never get to see what they're looking at. And I don't know how exactly it is that they come to form these opinions and how their confirmation bias has been exploited basically to polarize them from me. Because this happened with me and a colleague that I worked with before the pandemic and everything. He got rabidly nationalist and increasingly divisive. And before all of that, before the politics and all of that, we have a lot in common. And what I realized is that there are a lot of things. Technology is making it very easy for us to focus on what makes us different as opposed to what we have in common. And the more options there are of shutting people out just because we don't like what they're saying, we are never going to be able to sit at the same table with these people and figure out that you maybe you like Trump or you like conservative policies and I don't like these things. But you know what, at the end of the day, both of us are employees in some company and we're workers essentially, and we have that in common. Like I'm unable to get that point across to people because every single tool that they're using online is just focused on making them feel happy about their differences. Do you think this is a mistaken point of view I have, or how do you see this as people who create these things?
I get what you're saying. And I agree that it is in some way dangerous to simply banish people who have problematic points of view, which forces them to find each other, form communities with each other, and then stay shut off and radicalize each other without outside interference. It is indeed dangerous. But the other side of that is that, for example, if you're LGBT, you don't want your identity and existence questioned every single waking moment of your life. It is not your responsibility to fix someone else's radicalization or someone else's being wrong about something. You just want to exist in peace. And I think the software itself does not enforce any method of operation in particular. And so on the Fediverse, we find a spectrum of how this functionality of blocking, of domain blocking, etc., is being employed, from extreme ones where the spaces are extremely safe but also extremely shut off from the outside world, towards the places like free speech extremists, which like don't care about anything at all and are filled with people with bigoted views. So yeah, it's just
But the problem is, the more you look at bigotry, it is clearly evident that you're not going to be able to avoid it. And the more that people engineer against bigotry, it sort of is reinforcing bigotry. And I feel that I don't agree with bigots either, because I saw this video with Snowden and what's his name, Joe Rogan, where he talks about Joe Rogan is totally against this fact that they got banned from Twitter for dead naming. I think it was Kris Jenner or Caitlyn Jenner now. I'm not sure what that was, but basically they did not recognize a trans person's right to self-identify and they got banned for it from the website. And this guy was pretty upset. He said that websites shouldn't be doing that. So the point I'm trying to make is that these things, the tools that we engineer for us to have safe spaces and more egalitarian values, it somehow I don't know how it is, but it seems to be exacerbating our differences or the perception of our differences. It's becoming more important for us to each identify as, special in our own way as opposed to similar, you know?
Yeah, I think also, Shaz, I think it's important to take into account that, most people are using Facebook and YouTube and all of these things. And these problems are particularly exacerbated by these platforms because they're designed to keep people there as long as possible. And because of that, if they see that somebody has some kind of whatever interest in, like, say, an extremist video or whatever, they will keep on feeding them these kind of posts, these kind of videos. And because of that, it will just easily make their viewpoints even stronger, even more extreme, even more like anti this or anti that. And I think that's why we see a lot more and more of this behavior. Whereas in the Fediverse, if they're not looking to profit off of people's attention, off of people's data, then they're not necessarily feeding them more and more extreme views or more of what they want because they don't have that data. Am I right?
Yeah, and it's important to mention that YouTube or Facebook are looking at their finances, are advertising companies. 80 to 90% of the revenue comes from ads. And when people talk on Facebook and they so-called socialize with each other, they do so on a platform that is meant to be an advertising platform. That's kind of its purpose when you look at finances and where they invest and so forth. And when you see them banning this or that, this can also be a PR move because they have a lot of bad content on there. When I did this research for one of my books, Facebook banned me for like a few days because I posted a photo with something that was nudity, but it was from one of my books. I was talking about human behavior and other cultures and so forth, and I made a meme out of the book. They banned me for 2 or 3 days or something like that. And then I searched for another book. I searched to see, okay, is there nudity on Facebook? It's full of nudity on Facebook. You can find full porn movies on Facebook. Same with YouTube. It's full of crappy videos and conspiracies. And I think when they ban something like Alex Jones and others, I think it's also because of the pressure, the advertising companies that put pressure on them and so forth. So it's more like a PR move. So don't forget, those companies looking at their finances are advertising companies, So keep that in mind. Yes, Hippolyte, do you want to say something?
Yes, about radicalization and Facebook and YouTube in particular. The problem is not if you're looking for something extremist, then you get more thing extreme. The problem is that when you're not looking for it. For example, YouTube, you can watch like a video game review and then be suggested something that has to do with video game reviews, but is slightly more political. And then since it garnered a lot of attention for the political part more than the video game part, then the algorithm will suggest to you more and more videos that garnered a lot of attention, and it is less and less about video games and more about like conservatism or that kind of thing. And it's the same on Facebook. They tailor your feed based on what is the most popular, and the only way they have to say what's popular is when people interact on it, whether it's positive or negative. And this is a thing that is, as far as I know, completely absent from the Fediverse. If you want to look for edgy content or like right-wing conservative content, you have to look for it. And you have to know where it exists. You cannot be exposed to it as easily as you are on YouTube when you were doing something completely different. You just wanted like some review of some Transformers like model, and then suddenly at some point the YouTube algorithm in the autoplay will switch to something like just a little bit different, and then a little bit different, and then you can be exposed, even though this was not what we were looking for. And a lot of people have been radicalized like this, and that's something that is, yeah, I'm glad it's absent from the Fediverse because we're not trying to maximize engagement, and we don't have the data for, and we cannot like cross-reference like content or anything like this. If you want to have access to someone's content, you have to know that someone. And then you can judge on what they're posting. And if it jives with you, well, it's good. But if he doesn't, you don't have to be exposed to their content anymore. There's a lot of a voluntary engagement. You have to subscribe to something. You have to follow someone. You have to find the people. It is not like sent to you directly. And in the same way, and the other way is Facebook does not show you everything that the people you follow post. And again, this is absent that I know of from the Fediverse. If you follow someone, you will get all their updates, barring technical difficulties, of course. But there's no there's no choice. There's no plucking done. And so if you follow like 500 people, well, you'll have like a constant torrent of information. So this like encourages to have like a more curtailed list of follows, because on Twitter, if you follow like 1,000 accounts, you will have the same amount of content in your timeline. You will not be completely constantly updated with what people post. If you do that on the Fediverse, then you're going to be overwhelmed like really fast.
It's an incentive problem, right? Isn't it an incentive problem rather than just a technological or implementation? It's an incentive problem because Facebook is incentivized to do that. That's what they do. If you are being incentivized to, let's say you start to put ads on some Friendica instances, and you know that the more people click the ads and the more that they see them, you get more money, you might be incentivized to keep those people on one of those Friendica instances as much as possible, right?
Yep. So you would probably use the same kind of algorithm or thing, like you would have your custom Friendica instance where the content that people see is like curtailed to their interests. But yeah, that's what I like about the Fediverse, is that, well, you're getting exactly what you're expecting. There's no.
As
Sorry,
somebody
folks,
who has
but
only.
I have
Sorry,
to leave.
go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that I'm sorry, but I have to leave.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for participating. Really.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, Eugene. Yeah, and I'm not forcing anyone. If anyone wants to go, we usually have this between 2 and 3 hours. Sometimes it goes a lot more because the conversations are very interesting. So, yeah.
If anyone wants to leave at any point, don't worry.
Don't worry. You're not hold us hostage here.
In my Friendica account, I have like, I think 5 friends. Okay. And it's not constantly showing me something new or like, oh, look at this, even from random things. And I realize this as you're saying it, that, if I can keep it like that, I'm less likely to open Friendica and check in every now and then. And I think that's very good. That's you are incentivizing, at least you're not incentivizing addictive behavior. And that it has really been my experience this week.
All right. Specifically for Friendica, if you want a constant stream of content, you can have it. But again, it has to be like a conscious decision. There's like community web pages where you can have like all the public posts that the people on your node are posting, or all the public posts that are known by the local server. So like anyone else in the world that has ever interacted with your node, and then you can see their content. So it's a great way of discovering people to follow when you're just starting. But again, it's a conscious decision. It's a separate page. So if you don't want to be exposed to it, you just don't like push on the link. You will never be like automatically suggested, hey, why don't you follow this and that? Or, hey, this is a trending story or the trending hashtag. If you don't want to have access to it, you don't have to.
What I find funny is that several years ago, I guess, we had some issue at our, someone opened an issue at our GitHub repository. Can we implement some automatic smart filters so that content could be filtered more like in Facebook or so, but I guess no one from us said, "Oh yes, good idea." And I guess this was really some really isolated call. But it had been really interesting that sometimes people seem to like the idea of some automatic stuff filtering your content, but I really don't like this as well.
because they got
Yeah,
used
maybe
to.
and they don't see the negative part to it. That they're getting sucked in to stay there as long as possible.
It's almost like
while they-
sugar, or fast food.
Yeah,
You like it because it's like first time you like it, and then you start to
Mhm.
become like, oh my god, I might not be good, for my
Mhm.
health.
yeah.
Something
Or
like that.
maybe I should go like outside.
Yeah.
Spend some
and
time
I
with my family.
I really dislike this as well at Twitter. Twitter doesn't do this with the people you subscribe to, but when you click on the Twitter page, then on an article to see all the discussions, you will see different on longer discussions. You will see different answers than other people are seeing. I guess based on what you are corresponding to. So it's sometimes they're really weird, but yeah, since I'm using Twitter mostly through Frantica, I don't care so much. But this is some trend I really dislike as well.
Yeah. What I
People,
wanted to.
you're muted.
Yes, I was muted. Another really
Yeah.
grating part about Twitter that I realized like a few months ago is that when you click on a specific tweet, it will show you just the top level post, and then immediately will show you like related posts.
Yeah.
So you don't have directly the conversation. You have to click another time to get the conversation. And then if there's not like many posts, then you get another like related post. And I've saw myself like starting like scroll to them. It's just so easy. It's there. It's available. So it's definitely like very convenient in a way, like cross-selling, cross-displaying posts. But it's wrong. I mean, it's not what I came for, and yeah.
It's the difference between this service looking at you as a consumer, your consumer, and Frenica or Mastodon or others looking at you as a human being who wants to use that service. That's the biggest difference for me. And I've realized that with open source, for example, I'm reviewing like hundreds and hundreds of open source applications for our website, and I come from Windows. And by the way, I wanted to mention, like, I come from Windows. It's a lot more pain in the ass from my point of view, because I used to repair Windows computers and so forth, to maintain a Windows machine that it does now for me to Linux. That's like automated updates and all of that. So I don't think it's that much of a friction for people to go on Linux for that reason. They just are used to Windows or Mac OS and so forth. But what I wanted to say is that I lost my train of thought. Hold on. What was I talking about?
You were using Windows before you come from Windows.
And some
No.
filter stuff and so?
Why don't we put the power into people's hands entirely? Like, for example, an ad blocker is there as a filter. I do it myself. I enable it and say, okay, I don't want to see, porn websites or whatever. Mozilla Firefox, say, they are like, you can access any website, kinda, they have their own like protection things there. But why aren't these networks maybe acting more like a browser, letting you use the service, and then users will decide based on predefined filters or their own whatever actions what to block and what to not, so not instances deciding for users, but users deciding for themselves. What do you think about this idea?
Well, it depends. Again, it's a feature of specific software. So I don't know, Mastodon doesn't have something like this, but for example, Hubzilla does give user an option to decide whether or not to block or to delete a post from the timeline, or even block any future posts from a given user. So, for example, on our currently testing instance that is down for a few weeks, but our current testing instance, which in Hubzilla world is like third biggest instance, I don't think we're blocking any domain, any instance as a whole, not even GAP, because From my point of view as an admin, I focus on public timeline. So if I see that if we would be run over by Nazi posts or Holocaust denialist posts or whatever you have on Gab, which is like a big chunk of their activities, this is something that I would take action against, and then either start blocking those users or those posts so that the public timeline doesn't look like just bunch of weird people, drunk people shouting things. But apart from that, it's basically users' decision to, or it's users' power to decide whether or not to block certain content and not me as an admin. So, for example, in Hubzilla, I really like this position where I don't have to decide for people, or people don't have to send me a report and then I have to act upon that report, because it's everyone's decision, I think, individual decision. For sure, there would be cases where I would decide to block the whole instance. Like, let's say the public timeline is unmanageable and there's just a lot of content from certain instance that is, like changing the shape of the platform itself. But yeah, I think it's software related. Currently we're talking a lot about Fediverse as just two platforms, and I think it's also worth mentioning servers as the entities, as the towns, because when we talk about software, or when you were saying that, let's say someone doesn't like the fact that Gab is blocked, and then he can go to Mastodon or to Friendica or whatever. It's more about, in that context, it's more about choosing different servers, and I think it's also something that we should improve as a federated network, or discoverability of servers, maybe.
So
But
about
I'm derailing right now, so don't mind me.
user agency, there's like one particular example that really exemplifies the different philosophy between software platforms. It's the content warning. So in Mastodon, it's the responsibility of the creator of the post to add a content warning, and their post will be folded for everyone who displays their post. And this has led to a culture where people have been commenting on other posts that didn't have any content warning, and they were like, please put a content warning for people who are upset about this and that. And I don't believe that's the right way to do, because the post author is one person with like a specific sensibility, but their post can be reached, can reach like millions, potentially millions of people, with each of them with different sensibilities. So it's unreasonable to expect everyone to like match all the possible sensibilities. The approach we have on Friendica is that you, as a user, when you receive posts, you can create rules to fold specific posts based on their content, which means that you don't have to expect the people writing the post to put a content warning. And I feel like it's more empowering, and it leads to less friction because you don't have to complain about someone. And sometimes it's just like third-party complaints, like, oh, I'm not particularly like sensitive to this, but I know other people who are sensitive to it. So I believe you should put a content warning, not for me because I'm fine, but for those other people. And in the Mastodon software, where you have the content warning that is based on the author and not the person who received, that kind of like friction makes sense because there's no other way of like folding posts.
Yeah, I absolutely love this idea of putting as much power into users' hands, because else you get too much power as an instance that you will start to decide, what's right and what's wrong. And I understand that, and this is different than email. I mean, I will hate if someone will go to my emails and say you cannot send this email because maybe Gmail may do that. I don't know, but I don't use that. But it will be awful to send you an email and be like, oh, you are too extreme. I will block your domain because you are too extreme in what you're saying there. However, you will say probably that what you're doing there, social network, is a completely different thing because people can post on your own website, on your own domain. They go there and they see these crazy posts, and then you get into troubles because of those people, right? So that's where the tricky thing goes. You cannot leave 100% in the hands of people. Like Muppeth was saying, is he looks at the public stream there, a public wall of content, and is on his instance is his own home. If he sees lots of crazy stuff he mentioned, like beheadings or whatever, something extreme, he kind of feels like he has to tone that down. So I think that's the big difference here, because whatever you're doing, guys, there, it's public. So people can post on your project there. You are a voice to those people.
Yeah, and it's also a matter of like you're spending your free time providing a platform, and then your platform gets overrun by people you don't want to have anything to do with. So it's also this plays roles. This plays a role in it. So unlike commercial platforms that generally don't care about the content as long as the revenue stream adds up. If the revenue stream would be coming from, let's say, ultra right, they would be very happy to have ultra right content, or if it's left, then they would be happy to have left. But if you as an admin, you spend your free time to, for example, nurse or harbor a community, you don't want to have nothing to do with it. So there should be also space for you to decide. But yeah, and again, federated software gives you this opportunity as a user to decide which server provider with which rules you want to use, and from the service provider you can also decide which content you don't want to support on your platform.
Yeah. I want to go through a few other different topics, because then it's going to be too late, and I really want to go through these ones. One was about I was talking to Sasha, and she used couchsurfing, for example. She used it a lot, and then couchsurfing became this giant asshole. I was like,
are you guys familiar with couchsurfing?
You can explain to them.
Yeah, so couchsurfing, it's like a platform for people to host travelers at their homes, and they can come and stay with them for free. And there was a big website, couchsurfing.com, and that basically allowed people to make a profile there and to offer a place to stay for travelers. Travelers will come and they'll ask, hey, can I stay at your house? They might say yes or no. When they come and stay, they have a good time. They leave each other reviews, and now you have a review, and next time you want to go somewhere else and stay with someone for free, you might have a better chance of finding a host, and the host will be able to host more couch servers, and basically it's a hospitality exchange
based on reputation.
Yeah. So it's very important, for this kind of hospitality exchange. It's very important to have these reviews, like this history of who has stayed with you and who you have stayed with for free, because it's just based on trust, basically. And it started off as like perhaps a nonprofit organization, and slowly churned into being more and more of, it changed to a corporation. Then they, started putting in ads. Then they started, questionably, they started probably collecting data and lots of ads. Then they came up with all kinds of schemes to get money from people, like verifying your account and all kinds of stuff. And just this year, when the pandemic started, they basically cut everybody off of their accounts without any warning and said that, okay, now you have to pay to use couchsurfing. So even if you just want to offer a free place for other people to stay, you have to pay to use the platform. Well, originally they said, "Oh, we will never make you pay to host our surf." And also they have this great public relations stuff to make it them seem as if they're like friendly friendly people that are part of this couch surfing community. Meanwhile, they're just a corporation that is trying to make as much money as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So when this whole thing went down, when they cut everybody off from their profiles, of course a lot of people reacted and they got very angry, and people went to a couple of alternative platforms. For example, Trust Roots is one and Be Welcome is another, and they're nonprofit organizations also that offer the same kind of service, so hospitality exchange. But I was talking with some people, about what if these organizations now get corrupted as well? Because who's to say, okay, now they seem like they're good, they're not asking for any money, they're nonprofit organizations, but how do we know they won't change like couchsurfing did in the future? So I was thinking that actually the best way would be through something like the Fediverse. And so have you guys heard of, are there any kind of couchsurfing initiatives in
Would
the
be
Fediverse
possible
or anything
also
similar?
to extend it to, would be also possible to extend it, like she explained, to extend it to other completely different platforms, like sharing your house, for example. Couch. What do you guys think?
Well, it's complicated because if you build like a separate platform and it is based on ActivityPub, then do you expect like a Friendica account to be able to follow like a couch surfing ActivityPub account? How would you present the specific information related to couch surfing in like a mostly public context? That's maybe the biggest challenge, is that so far ActivityPub has been mostly used for public information, public posts, and then when privacy is needed, when for couch surfing it is, then it becomes a less like obvious how to handle the cases. So it would be like a case by case basis.
Wouldn't be similar to it like Mobilizon, what they released recently, the Framasoft, this event tool to create events and so forth. Maybe Friendica cannot communicate with it, but within this Mobilizon network of federated, it can work like that.
Yes.
With couchsurfing. Like imagine different couchsurfing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It could use like a different protocol and allow people to set up their own servers and like welcome their own users to couchsurfing our users, and then be able to communicate with everyone else on the network. But yeah, that's definitely possible. It's a big undertaking. There are a lot of technical considerations that go into federation that you don't have to think about when you have like a centralized platform. So it's definitely possible, but it is a big undertaking.
You don't know any examples of this kinds of similar federated
beyond Mobilizon, no.
Because I think even a platform where you share stuff like food or a bicycle or whatever it is. I have a friend has this website called sharebay.org where people can share stuff, and there are all kinds of other platforms that are like that. It would be super cool to have it federated in a way that you post your stuff there. Maybe say you make it locally. This share platform is just for your region, but others can federate, and I can also search in your region. So it can be regional or it can be global. So I think you can expand this probably. This federated universe. You can expand it in so many other products, not only social networks. Yes. Wants to talk? Say someone?
Yeah. I think we're focusing too much on here, at least during this conversation, on protocol in itself, or specifically ActivityPub, because I'm very biased towards ZOT protocol, which in my opinion solves a lot of things that ActivityPub still has to solve, and it's a decade old. But I think we have to talk more about, especially that it's I guess it's directed to less tech savvy listeners. Like I would, my reply to the whole problem with couch surfing is that as long as you keep it as a centralized server owned by a single entity, you will run into it because you have this thing called scale, which comes into play. So even your non-profit alternative that has started, that provides an alternative to couchsurfing, if successful, will keep on growing. Therefore, their infrastructure will have to start growing as well. And therefore, the moderation and the staff will start growing. Therefore, they will have to pay the staff. They will have to pay for the infrastructure. They would have to pay a lot of money. And naturally, they will have to introduce some form of revenue because probably the donations that they get will be a fraction of the costs that they need. And therefore, they will become eventually evil. And with federated services or federated networks, whatever protocol it's built, you don't have this issue. You don't have to have huge fish that hosts everyone and pleases everyone. So you have a lot of small fishes where even you can run your own server in your bedroom and then participate in a network where exactly that infrastructure cost gets split amongst everyone participating in the network. And therefore, if one instance becomes evil for whatever reason, greed or I don't know, became too big, then as a user, you can still move to another one and you don't have the situation of like, yeah, the couch surfing is now evil. What are we going to do? Now we're going to split the entire community into two different platforms that probably sooner or later will become evil or will become unsuccessful. So
plus people have a hard time moving because they need those references that they've gotten over years and years, whereas in this way they can pack their bags basically and take the references with them, right?
yeah, of course. I mean, there's a big ton of technical issues that have to be solved, but that's up to the developers, I think, to face those challenges if they want to provide such platform. But I think just thinking of federated approach basically solves a lot of issues, like, for example, instances becoming evil, growing too big, or being censored. Let's say a country somewhere decides, oh, this couch surfing is very popular and we don't like it, so we're just gonna switch it off, and then that service does not exist. While with federated network, as much as the main developer of Signal wants to downplay it, we can circumvent censorship in that way because you're dealing with the entire network rather than a single entity.
Michael, you wanted to say something?
Concerning couch surfing, I see, in fact, I see a problem with decentralized systems because couch surfing is really is about trusting other people, and especially when you're a woman and you want to do couch surfing, you really don't want to make couch surfing somewhere where there maybe there's some abusive person or so. And I see the problem with a centralized service. You can not really guarantee, but you can take good precautions to for the people to register with their maybe real IDs or something like this, like post-ident, or how the methods are named in the different countries, so that you can more or less make sure that these people are real people. And with decentralized systems, there could be it could be easier to make some fraud stuff or to make
impersonate. To impersonate
what?
others, to impersonate,
maybe impersonating, maybe also creating fake comments and so, because you own the server, you could do everything with this. You could tamper the data and so. I see this, especially for couch surfing, I see this as a real problem, but I have got no solution because I'm in favor of decentralized systems. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the verification thing is actually not very important because Couchsurfing implemented this. Well, they tried to get people basically to pay to get verified. And I don't think that verification really proves, okay, it might prove that this is you according to your ID, but if someone is a real creep, they can figure out a way to get around that anyway. And people aren't usually, for me, as someone that used to use Couchsurfing, I never cared if someone was verified or not. What I care about are their references. And if someone can make multiple Couchsurfing accounts as well, register with different emails, it's super easy, and leave fake references and stuff like that. But it's kind of obvious usually. So the important thing is that you see a person that has a lot of different references from different people, and then you can click on those different people and you see, okay, they have references from other people, and they seem like real people. So I think it can be doable without the verification.
And for the context,
Okay.
for the context, like Sasha traveled alone for the past 10 years, like around the world using couchsurfing, like from Siberia to wherever, So she used that intensively, and she was never raped, right?
No. Yeah.
Yay!
But you know what? Actually, Muppet, you said something there that I want to go back to, because in a way this TROM-Cast was about my conversation with you, probably on Mastodon. We had some conversation there, maybe a bit of a contradiction or something. You're saying about how these companies or these organizations can grow, and then you have more pressure, and that pressure makes you like you have to pay for the servers more and so forth. So you need to find some models there to sustain yourself. So let's talk about how do you sustain these projects. When I was looking at Discord, most of these organizations like Discord, from what we research and so forth we have a directory where we put these kind of organizations. You don't pay anything. You just use Nextcloud. They give you 2 gigabytes and so forth. You use their whatever CryptPad and so forth. What you introduced there, and it was a bit like to me, it was a bit uncomfortable. Let's say you introduced there a paid model on this route, a paid model, but maybe it's not a paid model. You say if people don't give you like a few bucks a month, they will get more storage space on Nextcloud, or they will have an alias, like their name in the like for email addresses and so forth. So I was a bit concerned with that. Should I be concerned that this can, if you have more pressure on you, this can grow up into paid model, like pro subscriptions and so forth? Is that a reason of concern?
Well,
what would you say?
Well, you should always be concerned, and the best way to be not concerned is, grab a keyboard and deploy your own infrastructure, and then take care of it yourself. And then you're not dependent on anyone, of course. But of course, not everyone can do it, or wants to do it, and wants to be busy with it. And yeah, I was. In fact, I was quite surprised when you approached me with this, because we were discussing this stuff for really long, and I thought that we came up with a very good idea. Basically, like we run our infrastructure on our own servers. We don't rent VPSs. We don't use Azure or whatever stuff. We use our own bare metal, our own hard disks, put in a data center, and this generates costs, a lot of costs. While normally you would just rent out a server with terabytes of data from S3 or Amazon or whatever, we have to pay real bucks for that data or that hardware. And additionally, we have to have enough hardware to, for example, replace a broken disk or enlarge our storage, which then means we have to get more servers, more infrastructure. So we decided that everyone has 2 gigabytes of cloud storage, 1 gigabyte of email or whatever that was introduced for everyone. And then people started asking if they can have more. So we decided that, okay, so in that case, you can we made actually with storage, since it's real cost that we pay for the hardware, we decided that there will be a price tag attached to the storage space. Especially that, for example, we had people requesting 1 terabyte of storage for a donation, which, if your alternative internet is based on corporate Amazon cloud, sure, it costs very little to add 1 terabyte. But for us, when one of your biggest servers is 14 terabyte, giving 1 terabyte actually prevents a lot of free accounts. So in order to prevent that situation, we put the price tag, because and in that price per gigabyte, there is a calculated forced donation for an extra free account. So when you pay for, let's say, 12 gigabytes storage, you get only 10, because 2 gigabytes are reserved for the extra free account, let's say. So we did that in order to prevent mass storage usage from people, because people are used to, Google offers like terabytes for nothing, which we can't afford, and we also don't want to, because I think people get used to storing a lot of junk and garbage, and they just litter the virtual space. So on one hand, it prevents everyone from just getting as much storage as they want, and on the other hand, it supports us financially, so gives a steady revenue stream that we can count on. So we get bills every month, or we have to have a fund for legal aid, for example, or fund for new servers, or fund for fixing things when they break. So in that case, instead of counting on donations that can change and can fluctuate over months, and then you cannot be sure what tomorrow brings, this would bring a steady revenue. The second thing that we give out, which is sort of a paid service, is the email aliases, like you mentioned, and custom domain linking for email and for XMPP. And this was done for two main reasons. One, because it requires us to do manual work to set these things up, and secondly to prevent abuse. So you can imagine a person creating an account and then creating hundreds or thousand email aliases, which will then prevent you from having your username that you always wanted to have, but it's already taken by some douchebag that just gathered a lot of them. And thirdly, it was because, well, mainly the people we spoke with, they were very surprised that we're doing all that work for nothing. And they actually, like some users, I'm not saying that it's the majority of users, but people that did approach us, suggested that we could do it for a donation, which means that you can decide yourself. And on the website, we also didn't want to put a specific price tag on this one, because we think that or we understand that for us Europeans, €1 is something completely different of value than if you go east 2,000 kilometers, or if you're in India, or if you're in South America. So we decided that our donation scheme would be measured in coffee, which is also a very nice example of exploitation. And so like you can and we don't have we the main idea for that was that it doesn't hinder users features. So you can still send emails. We don't do, for example, rate limiting, or free account can send only 100 emails. If you want more, then you have to pay up. We don't prevent people from, you have no money, but you want to have this second alias, then you can create a second district account and in fact get more storage. So that's very stupid business model if you think about it, and the fact is, as much as I feel bad about it, people do like incentives. The fact that we provide over 15 services for free does not incentivize people to give donation. But hey, you give an alias, wow, everyone wants to donate suddenly. So I don't know, it's a bad thing, but it works, it's far from saying it works, but it's enough to pay the bills for the servers, for the infrastructure. It's enough to have money aside for when the server breaks or when we need to put a new one. And it's hopefully enough to pay a lawyer, which lately we had to deal with some legal issues, and yeah, that bucket depletes really fast when you start dealing with lawyers. So
when did you implement?
Yeah,
when did you implement this? This paid things?
I think it was 2 years ago. I'm not sure. I think it was around 2 years ago.
Did you change it since then,
when
or
we
is
did
this the raw implementation?
No.
Did you change?
No, it didn't change anything actually with it. We didn't change anything because, well, sorry?
That was my concern. Is not like, well, you have to, maybe some people can donate to my money or pay to get more gigabytes in Nextcloud. I'm more concerned about, will you be pushed more and more, if you don't have money to pay the servers, to maybe put more things under paywalls. That's my main concern. Not what I see now.
No, that would the basic thing is, if we would have to if we would not manage financially to push through, then we would basically close registrations and continue with the user base we have now. And if that wouldn't be enough, then we would just announce that in 1 year or 2 years we're just going to close up. But that's not that hard. I mean, it's cost-wise to keep up the infrastructure. It's not we're not at that level yet. It would mean that most users would leave by then. If you cannot pay for servers, it means that you're serving it for nobody.
You have many users?
So,
you have many users?
Well, we do not disclose that information for a few reasons. One is to one is not to brag, like all the commercial entities, service providers, the first thing that they mention is, look how many users we have. It's very hard for us to estimate users because some users might use email, some users might use Nextcloud only, some users might not use anything, so it's hard to do it. And we also, since our motto is not to spy on people, we think that checking the activities, we have the general amount of accounts, you could say, but yeah, we don't see the reason to, or the point to disclose that, because why?
Sure, yeah, no, fair enough. And
No.
You guys from Friendica, what do you think about this? Maybe this is not a paid model really, because it's more, for them it's more like, let's get support, and you also provide people some few gigabytes, and you can very clearly from the discord.org website, you can clearly tell that these people are not about just making money or offering pro subscriptions. So I love to hear what he says about that. But people from Friendica, you guys, what do you think about this model of paying for maybe new features or more storage space? Because I've seen with Pleorma, I think, on some instances, or not that, maybe another federated, or a blog type of federated platform, where they say, well, you want more themes, you pay, you want more storage space, you pay, What do you think about these things?
I don't really like to restrict people, I must say. When it comes to storage space, I'm totally with you. That you could say that possibly in in Frantica you have a limited space for storage space of photos, and so because this really costs money, but we don't have any support for increasing this per user or to accept payments or so. Mike, who founded Frantica, had introduced some stuff, but it wasn't completely integrated in the code, and we removed this some years before. And yeah, it's hard. From the storage point, I could understand this, but everything else that doesn't really cost money, I really would dislike this. And yeah.
So Frantica is in a different situation. We're providing the software, not the hosting.
Exactly.
So in this case, if we wanted to introduce a model where you pay for more features, it would not go to us, but to the admins. So it's like a three-way relationship, which is it's complicated. It complicates everything. Like admins would ask us to add a feature that we would not, like a paying feature that we would not like directly benefit from. So it's a little harder to justify than this route where they are taking software and they're providing it as a service, and it completely makes sense for them to ask for subscription or whatever, because they're not like making the software. Since we are making the software and we're doing it voluntarily, it doesn't really make sense for us personally to add a feature. It would make sense for admins, but they're not making the software. So it's like I'm glad that Muppeth is able to like choose which features are paid, like for example more storage or the email aliases, but it doesn't have anything to do with the people who created the software in the first place.
Yep. Muppet, you want to say something?
No.
Oh, because you raised your hand.
I don't remember. Yeah, but then I forgot what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I was giving this. Yeah, sure.
No, I just wanted to say that, for example, especially with this kind of situations, or if you have admin providing a service, and then the admin gets, I'm not even talking about paid features or whatever. You know, he gets donation, and the donation it's nice, in my opinion at least. It would be nice if the admins that are running the software and that have some financial gain that allows them to should consider contributing or donating back to the projects that or to the authors of the software they are using to run their platforms, because it creates this symbiotic relationship between the provider and the developer. So you could also help the developer by fundraising his work to some degree. And of course, it's hard to say it in our situation where the Fediverse generally is very small in comparison to the global scale of things. But you know, even looking at the email providers that are huge, a lot of email providers never donated back to Free Software Foundation for, you know, postfix or whatever. And yeah, I think already, personally, I think that even now within this small pond, you know, if the server admin from all the donations that he gets could scoop out €5 to donate back to Friendica or whatever other project, that would, you know, contribute to, you know, the guys would get a beer at the end of the week at least. But it creates this the habit or this ethics within our little pond that nothing is for free, because at the end of the day, the developer has to eat, the service provider has to eat and pay for the infrastructure. And yeah, it would be good if everyone gets a bit of this crumbles from this little tiny pie that the server admin gets.
Yeah.
So the good position we are in Friendica is that so far Michael has not like requested any money for all his work. Like seriously, if he stopped working on Friendica, the project would fall apart. So we're in a good position that we're not in any like financial pressure because we are not hosting like an official instance, and we have like day jobs. And then the development requirement for Friendica are not that extreme that we would need to leave our day jobs. So in that regard, we don't apply any pressure on admins to funnel some of the money that they can very well ask to their users to use their service back to us. So that clears a little bit of tension in that aspect.
Yeah, so basically all of you guys are supported mainly by donations, and some of you have daily jobs, so you don't even get anything out of it. So how does it work, Michael? How does it work if Friendica will die because if you don't get involved with it? If I hope no bus hits you, but if it does, am I fucked in a way? Like I have a Friendica account, like no more development. What makes you engage there, and how do you support yourself?
Well, first of all, even when I stopped, and even when others wouldn't take up, and I guess this would happen, your account would still work because your server would still work. So no fear. But yeah, for me now, the financial stuff is not a problem because I have a good paid job and enough spare time. So yeah. For me, I have a Libera Pay account, like I said, in advance, and people really donate a little bit. It's not that much. I guess in total it's around €2.50 that I get weekly. But I see this
A
more
beer?
no, chocolate.
Not in Germany.
Okay, yeah, I like beer as well, good beer, but I prefer chocolate even more. But that's another thing. And I wrote in my profile that I really like chocolate, and it's real long ago, many years ago. But then some users sometimes send me chocolate from everywhere. I really appreciate this, not from a financial aspect, but from the aspect that people like what you're doing. And I don't need the money, but what I really, really like is that when people respond to you and say, that's great what you are doing, this helps me a lot, this really creates a good feeling in your soul. And yeah, this is what drives me. But when people really, really appreciate what you're doing, not that they are paying you, not they are saying, I paid you this much, now you have to make this or that, then I wouldn't but this, yeah, it's so great what you did. I want to hug you. Not in these times, of course, but the hug times will come, I hope.
Shouldn't we all be like that in this? It would be so great if at least 30% of humanity will be like that and be like, we cannot afford to do it, unfortunately, in this society. But wouldn't it be great to just focus on what you love doing and then just do that, and you get a lot of satisfaction, and you also get a lot of you help people directly, with what you do. So you're Hippolyte, sorry, it's difficult for me. What about you? How are you doing this? And you have a day job and so forth.
Well, my idea of contributing to Friendica is like extreme dogfooding. So I'm a user of Friendica. I host my own node. So I mainly focus on what the thing that I can change for myself. And in the process, it also changes it for thousands of people. And sometimes people don't like it. But but most of the time it's for the best, and it really is motivating to work for something that you're yourself using. It makes it like very concrete, like you can see the progress, and that has been something that I've enjoyed with web development in general is that you can immediately see the result of your changes, and that the motivation that also keeps me to Friendica is that I use it, so I see a thing that I don't like, and I can directly go into the code and like, oh yeah, we have to change that, and then change it, and then it will be fixed on my node, but also on all the others. So there's definitely like a feel good aspect of it, but it would not exist if I was not like personally affected by the issue or the feature request in the first place.
Yeah.
Like for example, we have like an extensive post filtering system that folds posts based on rules. And I started this project because I was like, oh, I want to try this particular framework. I don't have like a full blown project, but I could use it like in a Friendica plugin. And that's how I ended up making it. And I've seen people take that plugin and like completely run away with it. Since it doesn't tell you what to do, it's just like arbitrary rules using like a complex language, logic operators. It anybody can do anything with it. And I've seen people like starting chain rules like, hey, how can I filter like posts with more than 3 images? And then someone else replies like, oh, well, I have done this. You can change with the number of image you want. And just that, it's magical for me because I made that as like a proof of concept. Like, let me try that framework, and people are using it, and this will never get old.
That's so crazy. So are you going to implement that RSS bridge? I was writing in Friendica's issues there, like I was writing about this RSS bridge. If you can implement, and we were talking back and forth on GitHub. This idea of Friendica to like. Sometimes you might want to copy a Facebook page or a YouTube channel and so forth, and then put it in Friendica, and this RSS bridge kind of creates great RSS feeds from Facebook to so many services, 100+ services. You can integrate that with Friendica. The reason I mentioned that is because I realized like I post there, I post these guys all kinds of suggestions, and they are very active, and they reply very fast, and they take into consideration. It's so amazing to be able to just talk to them directly, even though I cannot, contribute because I don't have time and skills. At least I can test for bugs and stuff like that, and I can report, I come up with ideas. So I'm also a little bit of part there if I give you some ideas, so in this way we can collaborate and create something, much better. So I love this.
Stu was very excited when he first started talking to you guys. He's like, they're so friendly at Friendica. Like, of course, they're friendly.
It's named Friendica.
It's in the name.
And you're very polite, by the way.
Yeah.
What I really want to say is sometimes people really say, "Oh, I'm just a user and I can't I can't code, and I cannot help." But then I say, you are the ones we are making the software for, and you can make just suggestions. Well, complicated word. And this is so important, having the feedback, and especially when there are new users. It's so important, like Eugen said before, these first steps, like looking how people make their first moves, their first steps into the software, and then seeing where lying the problems. What can you improve to make the software better usable? And so the users are so important, and they are also a part of this whole stuff. And in comparison to maybe Facebook or Twitter, when Twitter says, "Yeah, we are now implementing voice messages," and all people say, "What the fuck? Why we don't need this?" And here it is like, oh yeah, I want to have this and this, and there's some discussion, and then maybe some programmers say, oh yeah, sounds nice, yeah, I will implement it. And this direct feedback, I guess it's so great. and I hope that the users really see that their feedback is really appreciated, and so they get something back.
I remember when Facebook implemented this thing with. I was managing at that time a page that had like over 100,000 followers, and there was like lots of comments and so forth. Facebook comes up with a rule and says we will post less from pages, less posts from pages to users, and we post more from users to users. And they wash that as if it's like it's because we care about relationships, because we want for users to get more updates for the other users. Well, in fact, they raised the kind of the prices and the stake for like pages to pay to reach their users, and we got fucked because we started to reach almost no one suddenly, So that's how decisions are made there, not for the users really, but for their own gain. Well, so maybe it's not the case. Maybe let's say that I'm it's a conspiracy, but I have all of the rights to have this conspiracy attached to my brain when most of their profits come from advertisement, but I have no reason quite to suspect that you guys are doing this kind of things for profiting. Like, what are you profiting from? You don't profit from anything. Hippolyte is doing that because he wants that for his own. He's a user. That's a completely different story. And Muppet, do you get enough financial support for this route, or you're like struggling there?
No. I have my day job. Getting financial support from or like living off of this route is probably beyond the reach. But yeah, what I like about development is that you do have time off from developing for, let's say, Friendica, or we can focus on other things. When you're hosting infrastructure, you're working always. So I usually spend around 50, 60 hours a week on this route, so more than my day job. And yeah, I don't remember when I had a day off. So that's a trade-off. You're in Greece on your holidays on Acropole. Everyone is taking photos, and you have to pull out the laptop because something broke, or monitoring is shouting at you, so you have to check what's up and fix things up.
Yeah,
so being developer gives you this not only the fact that you're playing with the software and you can do things, but you can also let go and then check tomorrow on your issue board. Wow.
Well,
it depends how much you're involved in it, of course.
Yeah. The problem is, okay, for me the problem is I'm also the admin of one of the biggest servers out there. It's not that much in scale in comparison with Diaspora or so, but it's I guess 1,500 users or so, which is a lot for Friendica, but not so lot for others. But when something is broken, I really have to fix it immediately. And the problem also is many server admins are running on the develop branch, so they get daily new features. And they really appreciate getting daily new features, but of course something could break, and sometimes that break, and
daily new bugs.
Daily new bugs, yeah, that's a problem. And so when you introduce a new bug, this can get interesting, especially because of time zones. Because Hippolyte is living in the US, I'm in Germany, so there could be something like I coded something shortly before I went to bed. Hippolyte was accepting this. Then the stuff breaks, and then at maybe 7 o'clock in the morning for me, I wake up and I see, oh shit, my error log is full. So then I also have the pressure to really, really fix this.
So you are both the server admin and the one who does the software, So it's like twice the problems there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and also the support stuff. When there's a support request, I really want to answer them as well. So it's a triple job.
But you enjoy doing it?
I totally enjoy it.
Yeah.
The pressure does make fun because, like I said, it's just like when people thank you for their work. That's great. So I also at my day job, I'm a coder as well, and when in my day job, and when people and I work directly with the customers, so I really get the feedback, and of course sometimes customers are yeah. Okay, but sometimes customers really appreciate your work, and when they say, "Oh yeah, that saves so much time for me. Oh, thanks." That's really like, oh, so yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
We will have to, of course, wrap it up in like a few minutes because it's like already 3 hours long. But yeah, but
Yeah.
it's so fantastic to hear from you. And what I'm getting from this discussion today is that, for one, there are complete alternatives to these giants, you know, in terms of functionality and in terms of what features they offer. So I think it's hard to say that there is now no alternative for Facebook or even for YouTube, because we didn't talk about this, but it's another alternative. PeerTube, I contacted them to come to the podcast, but they didn't reply. But it's fantastic, you know, it's like a different YouTube. So for one, there are alternatives that are as good and probably sometimes even better than what you see in these giants. And second, because they are so decentralized in these pods or villages, call them whatever you want, the power doesn't stay with one of them. So the power is distributed. They're probably more honest. They're like, the content probably will be better because it's better moderated. Facebook has to employ thousands of people to look at billions of accounts. You know, it's not doable. Plus their incentive is really bad. So I think it's a completely different world out there, what you guys create or maintain and provide, that unfortunately very few know about. And we have to tell people how great these things are. I'm sure it's not enough, but you know, I'm trying. I'm trying. That's why I made this TROM-Cast, you know. And I love people who do volunteer work. We have this we call it a trade-free directory. Basically, it's a big directory with stuff that we put there. We call it a trade-free in the sense that, you know, people offer things without wanting anything in return, like from Doctors Without Border to Wikipedia to archive.org. You know, they don't want your data, they don't want your attention and so forth. And whatever you guys do there, it fits so nicely with this model that we explain. You know, it's like, I do stuff, you know, you can use it. You know, it's like almost like a gift. You know, you give that to other people. You don't have any hidden intentions there. And like I like to put it is like, if someone helps you move a couch, you know, or furniture in your house, your friend, you know, it will be really shitty if they will ask you for like money afterwards, or they will collect your data, or they'll spy on you, you know. But that's what pretty much all of these companies are doing nowadays. You know, Facebook is like, come here, but I'll take your data, you know, and watch these ads. You guys are honest. It's like, come here. That's what it is. What it is what you see is what you get. And I absolutely love this, and I see that in the open source world of software. You know, if I use a video converter, that's what it does, and that's what I love. You know, it converts videos. No premium bullshit. You know, no like you have to pay to get better features. You know, or they don't lack you. They don't trap you there or collect their data. So I think it's absolutely fantastic. And please tell people, you know, where they can find you, where they can find your work, and why should they use whatever you're offering there as like a last thing. You know, please tell everyone, whoever wants to tell that.
Run your own shit. Don't depend on me.
Yeah, make your own stuff, you know, host your own services, you know. And should people use Friendica?
Absolutely not.
No. It's awful.
Develop your own shit.
No, but it's really great. Like I got so used to Friendica, for example. I absolutely love it, and I did some trickery there that all of our updates from all our websites go into Friendica to RSS feeds, and then they go to our stuff. And I love that. You know, I discover new people. That's how I got to discover you guys as the developers there, because I interacted with you there and other projects. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. And honestly, I thank you so much for doing this volunteer work, and you directly help others. You know, you should not be praised, because that's a shitty way of doing things, to give people awards or some stuff like that. I think your work is your reward, you know, whatever you put there. And I know this very well because I'm doing for the past 10 years volunteer work. I've never worked for money in my life. You know, I got supported luckily by donations, and I've been doing lots of other free stuff. We have lots of free stuff. If anyone is interested, like, you can go on tromsite.com, no ads, no data collection. We call it trade free. Like you don't have to trade anything to us. It's like no bullshit. That's what it is. Okay, so yeah, it was a fantastic, absolutely fantastic to see you guys. You are not only friendly, you really look friendly, but you really are
doing great things.
I fucking swear you really are so friendly. Like that name Friendica is like really good choice.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I also really appreciate all the work that you're doing, and really enjoy also using Friendica.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, thank you for organizing this. I'm really bad at organizing anything. So like organizing a podcast with more than 3 people is just completely beyond my my skill set. So you provide something too in your way, and that's what I like about free software is that everybody can contribute something, even if they're not like familiar with programming.
Yeah. No, absolutely, yeah. And I have to like deal with this. I have OBS here. I have to like look at the website and like too much stuff for me. Sometimes I find it difficult to focus on who's there. But anyways, I think it was a very good podcast. And maybe in the future we are going to discuss about similar subjects. I'll invite you if you want to participate. I'll love to.
I'll be happy to come back.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We are going to stay for like 5 minutes or so to do some other portion of our
You're still gonna do the news?
I'm just
It's
going
been like 3 hours.
but it's like 5 minutes. Anyone can leave, and you don't have to be. You're not hostages here.
All right, I'm gonna drop out. See you, everyone.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Bye. It was nice to meet you all.
Bye, guys. Great to see you. Okay, so we have. Okay, Michael, you stay. Let's see, Michael, if you like this news. Okay, we have like a curated news stuff. We pull news from all kinds of RSS feeds, and from if you go tromsite.com/tools, we have you curate documentaries and podcasts, and all of them are free, right? So we focus on science and technology. Aaron, who is part of our team, he does this in German, because I know you're from Germany. And the guy is like translating everything. Like, oh my god, I met so many like, nice people from Germany. Apparently, many like the guy from Mastodon from Germany, the guys from Friendica probably. You are from Germany, probably, or others. I've seen many instances from Germany.
The guy from Pleroma, is it? He's a German too.
Well, what happened there? People want alternatives.
I'm really not sure. And thing is, many Friendica users are German, and I really don't know why. So we have 2 languages, mainly 2 languages in the support forum. It's English and German, and it's sometimes I don't really like when people write the support post in German, because of course this exclude other persons, but we also do have users who really can only speak German. So yeah, we have to deal with this.
Yeah.
But I really don't know why. I guess many open source stuff is really based in Germany. So let's see Nextcloud.
Still Germany.
Is a German stuff, and this whole open office stuff once started with Star Office, a German company. So I'm not totally sure what's this. Okay, something like Apache or so hadn't started in Germany, but I think a lot of open source is coming from here. Not sure why.
Yeah, I observe the same thing with open source software, because I review lots of software for our Java operating system, and yeah, lots of them are German, are from Germany. So that's okay. I don't know. It's a mystery, but let it be. It's nice. It's nice
I really would like like to see some study about the background. At first, where really the open source mostly come from. Probably this is only my own filter bubble, and it's not in real this way, or it's the case. And then I really would like to see the reasons behind this. Maybe because of more spare time or so, or probably because the social secure system is so good that you can do stuff in your spare time, and you don't have to have 2 or 3 daytime jobs to get enough money.
Exactly.
I really don't know. I really would like to see the background.
Yeah,
Even
there's
for
probably multiple reasons too. You know, cultural. Maybe more people are aware of these.
even for
things.
us at TROM, the most involved is Aaron right now, who is from Germany. He translates everything into German, and he's making the German version of our project basically. So he's extremely involved, and very very into it. Like let's do something about it. So
Well-
let me go quickly through some of our news. Just like these are not related to software, just news that we pull from our news source. And it was one really great news. They discovered a coral reef, coral reefs. It's so tall, it's like 500 meters tall. And at the base is 1.5 kilometers, So that's wow. It's like what in the world, So it's worth mentioning that because unfortunately climate change, coral reefs are bleaching, and they're dying. It'll be such a shame. They should take that thing and put it in front of people's faces, like make a monument out of it. Be like, look, this thing will vanish, if we don't do anything about climate change. So.
And it really needs so much years to grow. So a coral reef, I guess many thousands of years are needed just to grow this.
So that one is off of the Great Barrier Reef, isn't it?
And they mapped it in 3D.
The tallest one ever?
I don't know. I think for the past 100 years or so, the one that they found. But it's huge. Like I'm showing people to OBS here a 3D modeling of it, and it's like this huge thing mountain at the bottom of the sea, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, another thing that we have on TROM Creator News is this from Spectrum. Spectrum is a website that is dedicated to technology-based news, and we pull from them when they post every Friday about robots. What cool robots are out there and what they can do. And it's a really interesting collection of videos that they put every single week, and I recommend you to see. There are some really crazy improvements when it comes to robotics, like the dexterity, for example. Not only that we improve the AI, we improve the hardware so much that it looks like humans. The dexterity is fantastic, So, yeah, it's amazing. And one really cool news is that they discovered water on the moon.
Yeah.
Have you heard of
but
that?
of course, I'm a total space nerd, and you can see in the background this blue thingy here is a plushy space probe. It's the one that landed on this comet, and several years ago. And I have the plushy version of this. Oh, I'm a total space nerd. Of course, I heard from this, but this water on the moon, yeah, it really. What has I said? I guess on the size of maybe a square kilometer, it's so much water like in maybe a small cup or so. So I also follow many people on YouTube, and they sometimes got the information let's say not so total, right? They'd say, "Oh, that's great water on the moon. So when we have our moon base, we can take the water from there."
No.
It's not that much.
It's 100 times more dry than the Sahara Desert. That's kind of how it is, that's what they say, 100 times drier than that, which is extremely dry. Like you explained, I'm not sure exactly the numbers, but it's a very tiny fraction that they discovered. They kind of suspected that, I think from 2009 or so, but they confirmed this. So, yeah. Super duper cool.
And they confirmed this was a really nice experiment. I like this Sophia, this plane. You know the background, which instruments they discovered this?
No, I don't remember.
Oh, okay. It's a plane. It's a 747.
Yeah, exactly. That it just goes almost non-stop, not non-stop, but they observe from the plane itself. It is the largest, right, observatory of this kind. Yeah,
and I saw several documentaries about this. It's really great. They have this really huge mirror, and it has to really be totally stabilized and on a huge 747. So it's a great experiment. But they really have to go that high because they are observing the infrared stuff, and infrared gets filtered by the atmosphere. So they really have to get totally high for this.
Yeah, I'm showing it now actually on the screen. I'm showing the Sophia project. Yeah, really cool. And did you share about this initiative in Europe of this universal basic income? They have this initiative now and then, because we are talking about financing. Wouldn't it be great in a way to like get this basic income so people can have more time, to focus on projects like you do? And now it's an initiative in European Union, and they need around 1 million signatures from multiple countries. So what do you think about this UBI? Are you familiar with?
I know the idea behind this because especially in the past I had been very politically active. I'm still a member of the German Pirate Party, so I'm one of the first members of the Pirate Party. So yeah, I'm totally in this whole political stuff. And yeah, we also had the idea there of this basic income, and it's always a question how to finance this. But I guess that there are models. And what I don't really like is when people say, "Oh, when I get money, I won't go to work." You will. I guess you will, because
Yeah.
of course there will be people who say, "Oh no, I'm just sitting here drinking my beer." But there are so many people, and I met many people who had been unemployed for sometimes their whole life, and they really said, "I want to work. I want to do something. I want to help people. I want to do this." And I guess this is what drives people. They want to do something. And question is, of course, if everyone wants to collect garbage or something like that. But possibly then this is really paid a lot, so that people value this work as well. And I really like the idea, because you could also do it, in a way that, of course, you could stay at home all the time, or what I really would like to do is maybe working only 20 hours a week and doing the rest of the stuff, open source stuff. And with this basic income, this would be possible. So I would do some stuff to buy new bicycles. I'm also a bicycle fanatic. I've got 3 bikes, a cargo bike, 2 electric ones. So yeah, and this costs a lot of money. Not as much as a car, but a lot of money anyway. And so I would need to work to get this, but not that much. I like the idea.
You don't know how.
And imagine how
yeah.
great if more and more people had, free time to be able to contribute to these projects and do all kinds of things.
And not only contribute to projects, but also maybe you want to go somewhere to maybe to help your neighbors, to go shopping for elder people, and just having fun with them, just playing games with people who are lonely or so. You could really improve this whole social stuff so much.
I have no idea if you know anything about what we do, but that resonates so much. That's what we are trying to do for the past 10 years, to put this idea forward. Like, imagine if people have more free time to do this kind of things. We should liberate ourselves from this crazy consumption, or what we call this trade-based society, where you have to trade your life, your energy, your data, and everything to get something in return. We should tone it down, or kind of stop it in a way as much as possible. And we had this guy from UBI in our TROM-Cast in the past, who is a very loud voice when it comes to UBI online and so forth, and we discuss UBI in more details. But you don't know how much it resonates with what we do, actually, what you're saying there, Michael, because that's what we are trying to say there. We made books about this, we made documentaries. I'm working on a new documentary about this whole idea to liberate people. It's almost like a form of slavery in a way for many people who are trapped in this society. They have no choice, And in Germany it might be better. I've talked to Aaron and others from Germany and so forth. But look at so many countries out there who you have no choice. You have to work like a slave, and you have for nothing. How can these people get involved with open source project or helping your neighbor? There is no way, So maybe UBI, it's a way to like take the weight a bit from people and let them live, for fuck's sakes, let them live on this planet a little bit. Yeah.
So sign the initiative. People.
So sign the initiative.
Yeah, I really have to think about signing it.
Yeah, and everyone can find our links in the description in YouTube or on our website, tromsite.com/videos. And I think kind of that's it. I will not go to other. I have one about how open science it was so great when it comes to COVID. It helped a lot when when scientists opened their research and let others take their research and then develop, treatments or approaches how to deal with COVID and so forth. So that's how science should be. Actually, 2 TROM-Casts ago, we had Alexandra from Sci-Hub. I'm not sure if you know Sci-Hub is the largest open science. Sci-Hub, it opens up millions of articles. So many scientists use Sci-Hub. And we had her on our TROM-Cast, discuss about how important it is to not only open source software, open source science as well. So that's the article.
Yeah, I would say everything should be open.
Yeah.
If you really want to kind of improve
our society. Yeah.
society. Yeah.
Yeah, and we are at almost 3.5 hours, and I think
Yeah.
we should take a break. And Michael, since you are not only interested in this kind of software related things like Friendica and so forth, you are free to join us when we talk about all kinds of subjects that are landing in your own backyard, so to say.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, anyone is welcome to join.
anyone is welcome.
By the way, I'm also a bicycle activist, and I also had been an initiative to improve bicycle riding in Hamburg. So I'm really engaged in so much stuff because, yeah.
Where do you live?
That's great.
Where do you live in Germany?
I'm living in Hamburg.
Hamburg. Okay, yeah, maybe Aaron can meet with you at one point because he's very active in these kind of things. Aaron is such I've never met a guy that's like nicer than Aaron, who's from Germany. He's from our project. He's so nice and such a. He said that he also loves Friendica. Like, he's the second one who came after me to Friendica. He's like, he's there on Friendica, posting all the time, So maybe he will contact you if you need some help with translation. So I don't know what he has in mind. But yeah. Anyways, so again, thanks a lot, and yeah.
Yeah,
let's end this here. Thank you, Michael, and thank
Yep.
you to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
See ya.
That was a good one. Thanks.
See you. Bye bye.